And I hate to lose the stream after sort of new one, but I do have all the super chats out of it if we do have to.
Okay, it looks like we are broadcasting, and I didn't actually get our intro started, DJ. We're just broadcasting because usually you hit the broadcast button and it gives me a menu and I can change some settings, and it didn't do that this time. So you know what we're gonna do for everybody that's actually watching right now? We're just gonna treat this like we aren't broadcasting yet. I'm just gonna jump over to the other screen. I'm gonna actually start the show proper. Everybody ready? Let's do that. Pretend like you're not seeing me right now. Everybody that's commenting at me right now in the comments. I really, yes, Daniel Davis, finally. I apologize for the lateness. Okay, I'm gonna go to the title screen. We're gonna start the show properly. Here we go. Captain Logan Show. Tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me this evening, as always, my wonderful chat moderator and producer, DJ Martinez. Hello, DJ.
Hey, how's it going? Good to be back. Man, you guys missed a fantastic intro that I gave in the last one, but I'm sorry. You're gonna have to just imagine how good it was, because
you're never gonna get to see that.
Here we are,
and we're not even gonna try it again because we've wasted too much time already. No, we started broadcasting earlier, and for whatever reason, it wasn't going to the right stream. I don't know why the stream key was in the wrong place, where I had the wrong stream key in there. I don't know what happened with that, but I haven't had to. DJ, I haven't had to change that or mess with that in months. I don't know what happened there. A couple people in the comments were making fun of me for being rusty. It wasn't my fault. This could have happened on any regular week. But anyway, welcome everybody. Thanks a lot for being here. It is another hiatus check-in show. We have been officially off for the last 2.5 months now. I've lost track, DJ. I have no idea what's happening and where the time is going.
Time?
I don't know. If I'm remotely coherent this evening, it will be a miracle. It'll be an absolute miracle. Just think of me as still offward. Like, just some idiot came in here and decided to start broadcasting for Captain Logan. That's me this evening.
We'll just change this show to Captain Logan Office Hours. And it's just people coming to you in your office when you're not lecturing. And
sounds like a really inefficient way to do a live show. We're broadcasting live, but we only accept one viewer at a time.
Yeah.
That person doesn't even get to come into the show and talk to me like over Skype or something. They just have to like use text. It's just a one-person chat. If I see anybody else in the chat, I'm blocking you.
That's true. Hey, that's the kind of care and quality we assure our listeners here on the Captain Logan Show.
It's exactly, yeah. It's just the way education should be, you know. It's one-on-one. It's just you and a student, you know. Work at your own pace.
I've always thought of us as educators. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Sure.
That's the title we go with.
Anyway, how the heck is everybody? It's been 3 weeks, thereabouts, since our last hiatus check-in show. A bunch of news and things to review have come out since then, so I wanted to go ahead and pop in one more time before we come back regularly. Now, DJ, you know this already, because I announced it when we thought we were broadcasting, and it turned out that nobody was watching. So I want you to pretend like this is the first time you're hearing it again. I'd like to see that exact reaction from earlier. The plan right now is to come back in 3 weeks.
That was about it, right? I think I held it longer, but I was very surprised.
I don't think it was audible before. I don't remember hearing any air coming out of your mouth.
It was more of just a jaw drop.
Right, yeah.
Because I'm excited. 3 weeks,
you want to do a spit take?
Soon. I had to dig this out from the back of my cupboard.
Oh God, she's back. I've missed you. I've missed her so much.
No, I didn't actually spit. That was a verbal-only spit.
Me and my lovely cup are going to have to refrain from making out on camera. Anyway, so DJ and I are going to attempt to come back in 3 weeks and keep going regularly with at least 2 to 3 videos a week. Anything could change. My life is still kind of up in the air. I'm starting to figure out what things are going to look like moving forward in my house. For those of you that don't know, if you still haven't heard about this, my wife and I think 8 weeks to the day, had twin girls recently, and I have been, of course, spending a lot of my time just taking care of them on top of the 3 kids that I have already, and trying to help educate my kids because we homeschool. And so I'm basically running a daycare, a nursery, an elementary school, and a junior high all at the same time right now. And it's going surprisingly well. Like, that sounds like an impossible, task, and it's not easy, but Sarah and I are doing fine. We're managing really well, but it's difficult to do all that much more on top of that. So the amount of hours I can spend on the channel a week is going to be, of course, scaled massively back, which is one of the reasons I'm going to be focusing primarily on superhero and comic book stuff, and older, retro superhero and comic book stuff, besides newer stuff that we talk about on the show. Here on the Captain Logan Show, we can talk about anything and everything you guys want to talk about within reason, as always. So we will chat about newer science fiction movies and fantasy stuff and whatever you guys want to talk about here as well, or here instead. But I'm just not going to have time for full-blown spoiler casts and things like that. I am planning on doing, like I said, once or twice a week, comic reviews, older superhero movies, stuff like that. But here at the Captain Logan Show, we will chat about anything you guys want to talk about, as always. And as I always say up front, tonight, and lots of stuff you guys are going to want to talk about tonight, I'm sure. Lots and lots of news and things happening. A couple of recent things for review that we're going to want to chat about, probably right up front, as lead-in topics. Put those as the thumbnail tonight. But a bunch of other stuff I'm sure you guys will want to talk about as well. And I am not going to go through a laundry list so that we can just get to you guys' questions, but if you want to talk about the new Matrix trailer, I have seen that. If you want to chat about the new Star Trek announcements from yesterday, the Star Trek announcements, we can do that. Anything? No, Cap, tell us how you really feel. We can talk about any of that stuff, and just know that I've kept up a little bit here and there as much as I can, but I'm focused primarily on family stuff, and I've been much more of a casual observer as of late. If you want to make sure that your question, comment, topic of discussion, anything gets talked about right on air, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount that guarantees that will happen for you. And we want to thank anybody and everybody who has done or ever will do that. You guys are wonderful. You keep the train running here on Geekvolution. We never ever take that for granted, and we never expect it. So if you can't do that, don't want to do that, you can leave a regular comment. You can leave a pre-written question, and we will do as many of those tonight as we can as well. I can't promise we'll do a bunch of those because I'm already seeing a ton of super chats, but we'll try to knock out at least a couple of those, so make them really good, will ya? DJ, let's go ahead and start right off talking about Shang-Chi, because I know that you've seen that, and we can both talk about that a little bit. And why don't we hear DJ's thoughts before I prattle on for a couple of minutes? How did you feel? We'll just do a quick sign flip by how we felt about review right here in the middle of Captain Logan Show. How did you feel about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, DJ?
I felt like this was the most I've enjoyed a Marvel movie since Black Panther. I really loved this movie. I've actually never done a how we felt about it.
Have you not?
That question. That was really weird for me. That was the first. So I just made it up on the spot. But,
really casual, really informal one. Not that those were ever super formal to begin with, but we're not gonna do 30 minutes on this or anything.
Yeah, no, I love this movie. This movie hit a lot of my sensibilities. I was really glad that they nailed the martial arts in this movie. I was really glad that it was more of a fantasy movie than we've ever seen in the MCU. So 2 big firsts in the MCU. I loved how beautiful and vibrant the colors and cinematography were in this movie compared to the pretty stale style that we've been getting constantly from the MCU. I'm not a MCU hater or anything, but I've been a little bit on the downward spiral lately. I really enjoyed Endgame the first time I saw it, but we didn't have as good of a viewing on the Marvel Mania.
We did not, yeah.
But yeah, so I'm always up and down the MCU. I like the movies I like, and I don't really go back to the ones I don't like. But I think this is going to be one of my favorites. I actually went and saw it again today. I saw it I saw it Sunday, and then I went again and saw it today. I really enjoyed the crap out of this movie. But yeah, let me ask us some questions in the chat so we can get into some specifics if you have any questions. But just overall, I had a really good time with this movie.
Yeah, we're not going to do full-blown spoilers, of course, because who knows what's watching. Pardon me, who knows who's watching right now, and this isn't just a spoiler cast for that movie. But we can get into some somewhat more specific stuff if you guys want to here in a little bit. So DJ, you and I don't always line up on these movies. I know there's a couple of Marvel movies that I really love that you don't care for, and vice versa. This one I'm real middle of the road on, and I think Shang-Chi is probably one of those like right smack dab in the middle if I was making, like a about it. It's not bad or anything. It's not offensive or anything. I thought it was a little slow and it was very long. And story-wise, I think overall it was just kind of bland. In a little weak. I feel like the main character gets lost in his own movie a little bit. It felt like a movie that wanted to be almost more about its villain than it was its protagonist, but didn't give its villain enough screen time. So I wasn't really with anybody as much as I wanted to be. I feel like Shang-Chi, that actor, seems like a fine actor. This is a criticism I've not given a lot of stuff. I don't feel like he carries the movie because I don't feel like he's allowed to. I think he might have been able to had he been given the right material and enough screen time. I liked him fine. I liked his characterization fine. I thought he had an okay, if not somewhat typical and predictable character arc. I like, as far as the look and feel of the film and action and stuff, DJ, I'm with you. A little bit more stylized than I expected it to be in places, particularly in about middle of the way through when we start getting into the interdimensional stuff. I thought the CG work here was better than it has been in a long time, and I liked the Chinese creatures specifically quite a bit. I thought it was kind of fun to take creatures from legend and lore and just literalize them like that. Some stuff that I just never really expected to see. Like, oh, we didn't like make up what we thought a dragon would look like. This is just what a dragon looks like, and it's
yeah. And the lions too. How they draw Chinese lions.
I thought that was the coolest thing. Yeah, that they're just there and hanging out, and I guess nobody's worried about getting attacked by those things. They're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah. Tallow. Everyone's chilling. Tallow.
I'm sure some people, I haven't heard from a lot of people about this movie yet because I just haven't been in the loop and reading reviews or anything, and I haven't talked to a lot of friends about this yet. But besides you and Austin, and Austin really didn't care for this movie, and you loved it, and I'm somewhere right in the middle. I'm sure some people are probably looking at the Katie character and seeing her as another Darcy or something. I thought she was fine, and I liked her relationship with Shang-Chi quite a bit. I think it's kind of cool that we are finally getting some just kind of straight up traditional sidekicks, because we don't get a lot of that in superhero things anymore. And while I feel like it's been a long time, besides the Spider-Man movies, since we've done much in the way of romance with these things. But having said that, I kind of I'm starting to miss romance in superhero movies. It's almost like we're avoiding it on purpose right now. Again, with the exception of Spider-Man. But I kind of at the same time like just a platonic relationship like that with a couple of people that have just been friends forever, and they dabble around for a second. The notion of getting involved, but ultimately it seems like they're just really close friends, and that's how it's going to stay. And we don't do that a lot either, and so it was kind of nice to see that.
That was great.
And so we've got her now, we've got Wong, we've got real honest-to-God sidekicks now with some of these MCU things. So I think that's cool. Back to the visuals, I thought the choreography was wonderful and the best it's been in a really long time. Some of the nicest action, and DJ can speak to this a lot more than I can because he's a martial arts guy and is in that world. I thought the stunt work was pretty exceptional here, particularly in that train fight toward the beginning. I thought that was great. The best cinematography is in that scene, but I think overall the cinematography is a little weak with the action stuff. Like a choreography is great. I felt like the camera was too close a lot, and and I wanted things to get backed off more, and I wanted to be able to see what I was looking at more than I was able to. I'm not saying that you never got that, but it was just too often too close. And not just that I felt like, it's not the shaky cam thing, it's not I can't tell at all what's happening. I just wanted to see...
No, definitely not.
I just wanted to see a little bit more of it sometimes. It was more of the atmosphere created than conveying information for me. DJ, sometimes it felt a little too TV to me, the way it was shot. And I feel like we're starting to get really arbitrary with MCU about what goes to the theater and what goes on Disney Plus. Because I felt like, and I know some folks aren't going to agree with this, but this is just my experience. I felt like, by and large, Loki was really cinematic and could have been in a movie theater. I realize it was, 6-8 episodes, and you're not gonna put that in a movie theater. But just as far as the way it's shot and those sets and props and just how that's all put together, I felt like that was as much or more of a cinematic experience than this. And I'm starting to really question, besides just length, whether some of these things really deserve to be in the movie theater. Like, I've heard some people say this is absolutely a screen-worthy movie, and you have to go see it in the theater. That was not the experience I had. I sat in the theater and felt like I would have gotten just as much out of it had I stayed home. And recommendation-wise, for folks that haven't seen it yet, if your sensibilities are anything like mine, I don't think you're missing that much if you stay home, as long as you got a decent-sized screen. I just didn't feel like I needed a movie theater for this movie. I'm not saying I wish I hadn't seen it or wasted my time or anything. I would have definitely wanted to see it eventually, but I was on the fence about going to this one right away, and I just always have with the Marvel movies, and I knew somebody would want us to talk about this tonight, so I was like, if I can find the time over the weekend, I'll take my son Jason and go. He felt about as I did with it. I think he enjoyed it, but I think there were some places where it kind of slogged for him a little bit, and he got somewhat bored. I felt particularly that way with the climax. Like, I got a little bit tired of the action at the end. It just felt a little bit too, CG ridden and typical to me. But I don't have my sign right here, but this is a green sign flip for me. I liked this a lot better than Black Widow, which I did turn red. And just comparing it to other Marvel movies for a second, I'll say it's better than the Ant-Mans. It's better than the Thor movies I don't like. Like, it's right middle of the road, and I imagine I'll have more fun with it even on a second viewing. I'm kind of looking forward to watching it again, because I think I might like it more just knowing what I'm getting into.
Yeah, it definitely held up for me on a second viewing. I wasn't as, obviously on the edge of my seat because I've already seen it, but, the first time I saw this, literally riveted with some of the action in this movie. I had a very different experience than you did.
Yeah.
I actually think Bill Pope, who does the cinematography for this, did an amazing job. He's done The Matrix and Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim, and I can definitely see that influence on this. Yeah,
that shocked me because I didn't think it was somebody of that caliber.
I loved how it was shot. It's not the shaky cam, awkward cuts thing. It's like it leaves the shots hanging, and it shows you every single hit that lands. Yeah. But it doesn't just back off and just show the choreography. It flows with the choreography. So Shang-Chi will throw a hit over here, and it'll zoom in, and then it'll pack out, go behind him, and then zoom back in over here, and it really made the impacts hit that much harder for me. So I really like that, especially in the bus scene. But also the scaffolding scene is incredible.
That's cool.
One of the best action scenes. I think this has the best action scenes in any of the MCU movies, personally, and I've heard that from some other people, especially at the top. After that scaffolding scene, the scaffolding scene was incredible by itself, but then there's that fight at the very top with the beautiful LCD screens reflecting off of everybody, and with Death Dealer, that fight. The guy that plays Death Dealer is Andy Lee, who's one of my favorite trickers, and he's an incredible martial artist. I've been following him for a while, and that he finally broke into this movie I was so happy to see him to get his doing this. He also doubles younger Shang-Chi in some of the scenes, and I can totally see his style coming through. But yeah, I was never bored, but I am also a fantasy guy, so that as soon as we got to Ta Lo in the third act, I was totally on board. One of the things, are we doing spoilers?
No, let's not do, like I said earlier, let's not do straight up spoilers.
Okay, that's fine.
Or maybe kind of minor spoilers, but let's not give away major stuff, just because, again, this is not the only thing people are here for, and who knows who's watching, and this movie did just come out last Thursday.
Okay, perfect. Well, in some of the next shows, like you said, in 3 weeks, I'll get into some spoilers, because there's a lot of little things I like.
That's a good idea. We could get into follow-up spoiler stuff sometimes if somebody asks about it, like a few weeks, 2-3 weeks down the line. That's a really good idea. And of course, we'll do a commentary on this eventually and stuff. So.
Yeah, I can't wait to do a Marvel Mania on this someday. But yeah, shall we move on?
Well, no, we can talk about this for just a minute and see if anybody else has questions about specifically this movie. DJ is, like you said, more of a fantasy guy and more of a martial arts guy. And DJ, I don't know if you've seen a lot of kung fu movies, but I don't know how to rate this as a kung fu movie because I've not seen enough of those things.
Same, honestly. I have not seen as many, but this really got me in the mood to go see some Chinese cinema, especially the score. I really like the score. I think his name's by West is his last name. I like that they got a lot of new talent on this one. I think the composer worked with the director before, but he's never done an MCU movie. So I like that they're getting new talent in here finally.
Yeah, nothing jumped out at me in the score. And usually I'm paying close attention to music, but I don't remember anything just leaping out at me with this.
Oh, it was so good. It's like it brings in the strings, the harp strings, and the horns, and it makes it really feel like an Oriental epic Chinese fighting movie. So that was really cool. I've been listening to the score a little bit all week though, so it kind of stuck with me. But like I said, I've seen it twice.
And of course, I'm basing this on just a first impression, and sometimes I have totally different feelings about a thing when I go back and see it later. Because as I always say, there's so many different variables when you go see a film, and how late and with what audience. And this was one of those movies, by the way, where our audience kept laughing at things that both weren't funny and weren't intended to be funny, and I did not understand that. And that's
weird.
That always takes me out and stuff. But it loses points a little bit for me just because a lot of it's not sticking with me. I'm kind of like racking my brain right now to remember certain details about it.
Joel P. West. Thank you, David Davis. Yeah, I thought you did a great job.
I was a little bit disappointed, and I was worried about this from the trailers, and it did end up being like this. I was a little bit disappointed with the way the rings were handled. And as I always say, things don't have to be exactly like comics or whatever, but the 10 Rings is a thing that was established going all the way back to the first movie in the MCU. In a really weird way, this movie is like 13 years in the making, because we had the 10 Rings gang, which is using the exact logo, of course, that's in this movie and that was in Iron Man 3, initially in that movie, and then later on we do the fake Mandarin, and now we've got the real Mandarin, even though the villain at the end of Iron Man 3 calls him, says, "I'm the Mandarin." Now, you're also not the Mandarin. For the sake of that movie, that whole idea thematically sort of worked. Doesn't matter anymore. There was a real Mandarin all along, it turns out, and if you watched those old shorts that they used to put on the DVDs and Blu-rays, you'd know that that they backtracked a long time ago, shortly after Iron Man 3, and said that there's a real Mandarin, and that Slattery was, basing his off of a real one, and he was, cultural appropriation and all of that. This actually, without giving anything too much away, deals specifically with that, delves like deep into the whole cultural appropriation thing, which I was not expecting it to do, but it just felt the need to comment on that, and I don't know. I usually think less is more on a thing like that. I was indifferent toward it. It didn't bother me, but I didn't need it either. I don't know, but the rings, I'm sorry, were lame. There's some fun stuff done in choreography with them, and I will say I like the crouching tiger of it all. When those are first introduced, and you've got the kind of traditional Chinese like tree jumping stuff on wires, I loved all that. I mean, that's great.
It's beautiful in the beginning.
But I don't really know why you have all the different symbols in the 10 Rings logo anymore, because the rings all look identical and they all do the same things, and they're not all different. They don't give you different powers, each of them, like they did with the Mandarin in the comics. And it's another one of those kind of Doctor Strange things where I feel like we've compromised a little too much, and it's not as fun and whimsical and imaginative as it could be. I'm not saying there's nothing creative in this movie, because like you said, with the interdimensional stuff, there was some stuff to latch onto, and we're fully embracing magic now, finally, yes, which I really appreciate. And of course, we were doing that in Disney Plus first, but it was pretty satisfying to be in an MCU movie and not having anybody trying to explain how the magic works as science. So I like that we're finally past all of that, and we're just straight up doing, magical stuff now. Thought the rings were a little lame, but that's, I don't know. That's one of my big
That's
complaints.
fair. I have no knowledge of the Mandarin's rings at all. For me personally, I like that they were just kind of an extension of his arms so that we could have better martial arts fights. I wouldn't like him to be using superpowers like everywhere. I don't know what the Ten Rings typically do, but I like that he was just using them to kind of fight with. And I really like the creative stuff that he was able to do with them by releasing them and pulling them in, launching himself off the ground and stuff. Like you said, with that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon type fighting style.
I could have used more of that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I love
that was cool.
that the fighting style wasn't just like for the heck of it. It was actually, linked to his arc and having to find out that I didn't even mention this. If you love father-son stories as much as I do, I think I really like this. I thought this was a little nuanced instead of just the whole like, oh, not trying to be your father. Without getting too much spoilers, this was a little more nuanced than that, and it was more about the fact that your parents are a part of you no matter what, and taking the good parts that they gave you and trying to leave the bad. And
you're right. And that stuff's good. I feel like the father, the not Mandarin, he has a whole speech about why you shouldn't call him the Mandarin, or why Mandarin is a silly name. I like the thing he says about oranges. But
I love that. I thought that was so consistent with Iron Man 3. I was not expecting them. I thought they were just gonna plow over Iron Man 3 and pretend it didn't happen. I love that they kept
it's funny, I've heard a lot of people say that. I thought that they would address it in some way, but they went more full tilt than I thought they would, just because they seem to have been kind of obsessed with people's negative reaction with Iron Man 3, like they really weren't expecting that, and they didn't realize they were disappointing people with the advertising. It's been 8 years, and they're still worried about making people happy with this. Hopefully this isn't giving too much away. I am going to put a little minor spoiler here because I have to mention this now that we're talking about this. So if you don't want to know about this, I'm going to say something about the after credits, the very, very end. So just, I don't know, mute for like a minute and a half if you don't want to hear about this. I'm just going to mention one thing about that, which is, I think this was so weird. There's no promise at the end of this movie for Shang-Chi returning, but there is the 10 rings, and I think that's so weird! It would be like if you got to the end of Winter Soldier and it was like, Hydra will return!
Well, I think, and this is my biggest negative. I haven't given a negative yet. My biggest negative is all summed up in that first after credit scene, which I hated. I love the second after credit scene. I hated the first after credit scene, and I think that was basically saying Shang-Chi's coming back. They just didn't do it with titles. But I know what you mean. It's weird that they did that specific.
It's just funny. They didn't promise it, but they promised that the organization would be back. Like, they're trying to make it the new Hydra. That was the sense I got from it. And the whole Ten Rings organization to me, like, I know you don't have this. There's some generic in this movie to me. What I was going to say a minute ago is I felt like the Shang-Chi's arc itself was okay. I feel like there's a reveal with that comes too little too late for me, where, like, I wasn't with him enough, and I wasn't really caring that much about that character. And then once we find out that it's not initially what we thought it was, because at first they treat it like it's this really typical, almost coming of age thing, even though he's not a kid, with just the directionless guy who has to learn to be a hero. It actually turns out not to be that, like you're led to believe it is at the beginning. And then later it's more of a redemption story, and I wasn't expecting that. I've talked to a couple people that say that they absolutely thought that was going to happen. I don't know. I guess sometimes I get the wool pulled over my eyes. I was not expecting that. But I thought the father's motivation was pretty typical and not especially compelling to me. But Shang-Chi's arc around it was okay.
Yeah, you say coming of age story, he's not a kid. Well, he kind of is, because that's kind of the whole point. Is he had his childhood robbed from him, so he's trying to live it with this fun girl who is afraid to grow up and doesn't want to get a real job and wants to, which is why the humor didn't bother me. That's a nice
dynamic.
Yeah, I love their chemistry. They have really good chemistry, and that's why the humor didn't bother me in this one. Like, that's the character. That's who she is. That's how she would talk. She's a kid who doesn't want to grow up.
Her humor didn't. Her intentionally making jokes in scenes felt natural and was fine. There are some forced things in outside of that didn't work.
Absolutely.
And everybody knows the scene I'm talking about. The airplane scene is that thing that it seems like every MCU movie, there's a quote of one of those. We have that Spider-Man Far From Home scene again. You remember the Nick Fury scene that I hate? Where he just keeps getting interrupted in the middle of a speech. We have to do that every time now. And we've done it, I think at least one of the What If episodes has done it. Like, everything does it now. And we have a formula for humor. It's like, sneak that in someplace.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing that took me out was actually a razor fist line that they put and it was horrible, and it made me groan. But yeah, like the humor doesn't bother me when it's that character. I don't think a astrophysicist or whatever Darcy's supposed to be should be acting like that. I don't think Thor, who's a 1,000-year-old god of thunder, should be making those jokes. Like that's when it really irritates.
No, it's kind of refreshing because she really is just a girl just hanging out. Like, it kind of works.
Yeah, she doesn't know what's going on. She's the eyes in. She gets dragged on this crazy adventure, which would be horrifying.
And she gets a little bit of character growth.
The scaffolding.
I think there's stuff to do with her later.
Hilarious. But yeah, like I was gonna say, my biggest negative is that this is an MCU movie. Like, this movie simultaneously got me reinvigorated my like interest in the MCU and also killed it. Like, I just want a sequel to this movie so bad. I don't want Shang-Chi running around with Captain Marvel, and I won't get into spoilers, but anytime they shoved in like cameos or like, hey, see where this is going, all that stuff with the MCU, connecting it with.
Well, we haven't even talked about any of that. I'm sure some folks probably wanted us to, but we'll just put a pin in it. Maybe discuss that later on if we do more major spoilers with this movie. But I mentioned that there's another dimension in this movie. This is the first big screen thing that is opening up the multiverse, and I'm not giving anything away to most of you guys saying that because that's been known for a while. There's set up for it in Loki, not particularly with this movie, but just set up for more multiverse stuff, of course. With that show, which I, by the way, finished today, and if anyone wants to talk about that, I can speak to that real briefly. But last thing I wanted to mention just real fast as an aside, this has nothing to do with anything, but I felt like in a weird way this movie was what the Elektra movie back in the mid-2000s thought it was doing.
Oh, gosh.
So go back to Elektra. This is that movie done better. It's weird.
I think every movie is Elektra done better.
But particularly with all of the with the like raising a kid to be an assassin and all of that, like
that stuff's done way better. Yeah,
this is weird how much they had in common. Senior Nerd, I just got into Cap like Shang-Chi. I liked it fine. I mean, my review of this movie is it's fine. DJ liked it a lot more than I did. I flipped my non-existent sign green. I'll just go get my sign. So
there you go, guys.
That I got rid of my sign. Anyway,
he still has it. He's not retired. He's coming back. Anyway, I could talk about this movie all day, and we kind of already talked about it for 40 minutes, so maybe we should.
It's funny. I said we were going to do a half an hour on that, and we kind of did, so we should move on. I'm feeling. I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to drop this down here and just say fine. I'm feeling fine. And it's great. Exactly. Anyway. I also wanted to
get some super chats about What If you want to just kind of.
Oh, sure. If there are super chats about What If, let's just go right into that instead of my doing, a sign flip. I'll still flip. Well, I shouldn't flip my sign on that yet because it's not done. There's still, I don't even know how many episodes are left of that. We've had 5. Are they doing 6 or 8? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Maybe it's 8. I forget. But I can talk briefly about some of the ones that I've seen, and if anybody has specific questions about them. I guess real quick before you read that, all I'll say more generally about that real quick is it has been an absolute hit and miss affair for me. I have been disappointed. I think the animation is fine. Some of the writing is quite bad. Some of the premises and some of it's fine. Some of the premises have been more interesting than others. I was a little bit worried at the start that every episode was just going to be, what if this character had the mantle of this other character? Because we do that for the first 2, and then it stops being that after that. I was also worried that it was going to never be tragic, that the end of every episode was going to be more or less the universe comes to entropy and it wends its way back to more or less of what you know. It stopped doing that, so I do appreciate that, and most of the time they are real honest to God what if stories. I'm a huge what if fan. It was always one of my favorite things in comics growing up, and it's surreal that it exists in a TV program now, in animation. It's cool that folks that never read those comics are getting to kind of experience that is an idea. I think sometimes they get really sloppy with what the diverging point is. It doesn't always make sense. I don't want to give stuff away yet. Marvel Zombies just dropped yesterday, and it does one of those where the diverging point, the thing that makes the zombie apocalypse happen, can't happen. Like, it just doesn't even make any sense. And I appreciate again that
I wanted to watch that one.
That we're making them stories that go off in a different place. So it's not just what ifs are not the same thing as Elseworlds. So an Elseworld, if you don't know, in DC, is basically let's reimagine the universe as something else. Sometimes it's an event happens differently than the way it did originally, but it's not the science fiction what if speculative question. Traditional what if, because traditionally Marvel is more science fiction and DC is more fantasy, so it makes a lot of sense that they went this way with these kinds of stories. What if would be, here's a comic exactly as you remember it, and then this character made a different decision, or something else happened, and the idea is the many worlds theory. So let's go to those other universes that were created by this decision that this one person made. And the decision that gets made that makes it that the zombie apocalypse happen can't be made. It just doesn't even make any sense. It has to do with Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it's not possible, and I don't understand it. And there's a couple of other things like that too. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into some specific questions about that.
Yeah, ask some questions if you guys haven't. But the super chat specifically about what if was from T-Edge1, and he's showing his hand here by saying, why can't they make a decent what if episode?
Well, I personally think they can. I thought the Doctor Strange episode was quite good overall. I really enjoyed I enjoyed that one because it was focusing on a singular character first of all. It was honest to God, here's a story and a totally different direction it might have gone, in a really tragic direction, and it casts Doctor Strange ultimately as a bad guy. I enjoyed a lot of the visuals in that one. It was a lot more of the stylized comic bookiness that I want from a Doctor Strange movie, so I liked that a lot. It had a lot of fun with its kind of gothic imagery and stuff, if gothic is the right word. And but I don't know, I thought that one was better than a lot of the others, certainly. The writing in that one was a lot less clunky, and I also liked that one because it was a full half-hour story. It didn't feel like a clip show like some of the others have.
Yeah, the only one I've seen, I'll say right now, the only one I've seen is the first episode. I couldn't get excited about any of the other premises when I was reading them.
Sure.
I did want to check out Marvel Zombies, just didn't have time to today. Like I said, I saw Shang-Chi again. So I've only seen that first one.
I'm so disappointed because I love Marvel Zombies, and they did exactly what I was afraid they might do. And I wasn't expecting, of course, a straight-up adaptation of Kirkman's Marvel Zombies, but I was hoping that it would feel a little bit more like that, at least in tone. And they just made it an Ant-Man movie. And I don't just mean in the humor, I mean it's an Ant-Man movie. Like, that's what they did with it. I talked to Austin about it. He said that the tone was all over the place. I agree with that, but overall, it was an Ant-Man movie, and they don't... Hopefully I'm not spoiling too much by saying this, but one of the really cool things about Marvel Zombies right out the gate is seeing zombie Spider-Man having to... really just that... The story is, at least that first one, is from the zombies' perspective much of the time, because they're zombies in that I'm talking about in the comics, they're zombies in that they have to eat brains to survive, and they are still undead, but they have their faculties more or less about them, so they can't help but do horrible things to be satiated, but they still have their moral centers, they just keep having to break them, and so it's a little bit closer to like the iZombie thing, just in that they're still they still have their personalities intact, but they don't necessarily have their souls still. And in this, it wasn't that at all, which is part of the reason the premise didn't make any sense. But it was just a little bit less fun because it was too typical regular zombie fare. And I like Marvel Zombies a lot, and it's kind of sad that they didn't, just do that basic premise. But also, I just didn't like that they didn't start with a zombified Spider-Man, because that was one of the really provocative things about that right out the gate.
Yeah, that's a bummer. So some people talking about it. Brian Paniagua says, "What if is trash?" So.
I'm not going to go that far. I thought the first episode was fine. I'll just go through this real quick. The first one gave me hope that it could that there would be maybe a great one somewhere. I was like, this is a what if story. Like, I was just excited that,
like, explaining the concept of what if is to people who don't know what it is.
Yeah, I was just excited that it was an honest-to-God traditional what-if story. The next one was T'Challa becoming Star-Lord, and I hated every minute of that.
I did not.
I thought it was
absolutely
atrocious, that script. The Marvel Zombies episode is the second worst so far, but man... And it's nuts that that's not the worst, but that T'Challa story is much,
really
much
quick.
worse.
I have to jump to a super chat that's unrelated, but
Ace vs. Knight just said that the one that I don't like is the best. I really hated that. I'm sorry. I thought it was so super sappy. It basically was like, if T'Challa goes into space, he solves all the problems of the universe, and it just didn't work.
T'Challa's just that awesome. But Nicholas Robinson,
I really didn't like what they did with Thanos with that.
Oh, wow.
Which I guess should have been cathartic for me in a way, because it almost felt like the MCU saying, yeah, we really did screw up with Thanos. Like, the issues that I've got with Thanos, it was kind of like, right out the gate with that, it was like, yeah, why didn't Thanos come up with a more creative and easier way to try to solve the problem he was solving? Somehow it made it worse. I don't know.
So, Nicholas Robinson put in a $2 super chat right as you were saying. He said, are people scared to critique the MCU content harshly? And then you said the second episode is garbage or something, like right as you wrote that, and it really made me laugh.
No, I'm not afraid to do that. I just said Shang-Chi is mediocre. It's got like a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes or something.
That was really funny.
And I turned my sign red on Black Widow and said the first half an hour of that movie is fine, and after that, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, people seem to be in the same boat as you with what if, a little underwhelming on the whole for the people in the chat as well.
Now that I can, it's been a few weeks. I'm gonna do a spoiler real quick with Black Widow, because I don't think I got to talk about this when we did that a few weeks ago. So again, turn this off for 2-3 minutes if you don't want to hear me talk about Black Widow. I doubt anybody cares at this point. But
I may.
Did you see that?
No, I saw chat.
Maybe we talked about this. I can't remember, but. They did a thing with the Red Room with that it took me out so much I was just done immediately, like as soon as this plot point showed up. Because it's not... Maybe I did talk about it. I can't remember.
You think you did talk about this.
It's not conditioning anymore that makes the girls in the Red Room work for the Russian government and do what they do, or for the one guy that they're working for. The kind of underground, what do you call it? I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but the shadow government thing. But it's there's just a antidote now. There's just a pill you can take that gets rid of the conditioning. I can't deal with that. That's so dumb.
Do you want to...
So yes, I'm not afraid to... I'm not afraid to criticize the MCU.
Okay.
Hi, Dark Summers Win, and that's not a name I recognize, but welcome. Hi there. Good to see you.
I've got some super chats about other Marvel MCU things that I could go into, or I could just go in... Do you just want to go in order with the super chats?
Let's jump around a little bit. Let's jump around, because we are 43 minutes into the show, and all we've talked about is MCU so far, so...
Okay, well, I'll start at the beginning. We'll just come and go through them as they come. First of all, thank you TH1 for the donation. He says, "What do gods like you need with a YouTube channel?" So, little Star Trek reference, little compliment to us. Thanks, Tom. Always appreciated.
I don't know how I feel about that, Tom. I can't. I don't think I can handle being called a god. I don't want to be a god.
What do we need with the YouTube? Money.
I can do all kinds of stuff with the Starship. Yeah, no, cinematographic. I think I was trying to think of Black Ops. Was what I was trying to think of. But anyway.
Adam Arch says, "I hope you spent the hiatus figuring out who brought the yams to Thanksgiving dinner in Spider-Man." Never gonna let us live that down.
We didn't have to think about it. We learned in that episode. We learned in that video what it was.
Yeah, it was yams. No, it was fruitcake. And then one from Jedi Knight, $5. Thank you so much. How do you feel about your old top 10 shafted characters in superhero movies? Rewind. How has it changed since then?
It's changed a lot. I don't remember everything I said in that video now, but Austin mentioned
Deadpool was in it.
Yeah, Deadpool was not in it. I talked about why I didn't put Deadpool on that list, if memory serves. I didn't mention Deadpool in it because what I said was, I know. Remember, guys, this was years ago. I mean, I think I did that.
Oh yeah,
was it a decade ago? I forget now. But it was not all that long after Origins, and I remember writing in that. Well, I guess it couldn't have been that long. Yeah, it was 8-9 years ago. I don't remember when I did that, but I remember saying in that, folks are going to expect me to put Deadpool on this list because everybody hates what was done to him in that, and I was like, but even though it's kind of a goofy origin story, it's for that character. He's not technically Deadpool until the very end of it. So yeah, like the whole, it's so CW, right? That you'd sew up the merc with the mouth and be like, look how creative or how clever we're being. He can't, the merc with the mouth can't talk. And then there's an after credit scene, or just the last shot of the movie, I can't remember, where he gets his mouth open and he's there, and potentially setting up some kind of sequel for Deadpool. So I just didn't feel like that counted as shafted because there was a chance of him coming back at some point. And then of course, obviously now Deadpool is the least shafted character in anything ever.
Anything. Yeah, I was watching some behind the scenes for Shang-Chi, and Shang-Chi during all of the stunt training is wearing a Marvel logo shirt with Deadpool laying on the logo like this, like at Marvel Studios. I was like, he's everywhere. He's in the studio.
It's really funny.
Everything.
But yeah, Austin mentioned this to me the other day. He was like, people in the Discord, because sorry folks, I have not had time to spend much time in the Discord. That was a great sentence. I have not been able to spend a lot of time in the Discord lately, and Austin was like, we people keep having conversations about who you could or who they would put in a new shafted list, and we've had obviously so many superhero movies since then, probably quadruple the number we had. And that's probably not an exaggeration. When I did that video, I have been seriously considering making another list. So while we're on a rewind, full disclosure. So first of all, I don't want to try to go back to that right now and talk about it because I'm probably going to do a follow-up to that and do, new, more recent shafted characters.
Oh, cool.
So, you know what? I'll give you one spoiler about it. Uncle Ben in the MCU is probably going to top that list. But maybe tied with him. You know what's really funny? As far as I know, besides because right now he's an initial. Besides the initial on a briefcase in Far From Home, I'm pretty sure the only mention we've got from him so far has been in a What If episode. Spider-Man gets a stirring but not great speech in the Zombies episode that just came out, and he mentions Uncle Ben. I'm like, okay, so the Zombies confirms that there is an Aunt May in the MCU.
Wow.
Okay. But anyway, so full disclosure real quick, guys. I have been making announcements of things that I'm hoping to do when I come back. That's maybe a mistake. And I have said much of the time, I'm not making any promises. This is the plan at the moment. This is what I'm hoping to do. I just want to keep checking in with you guys and let you know what my thoughts are, so that you don't think that I've, just run off and you're never going to see me again. And originally, my plan was to do scripted rewinds as often as humanly possible. And as I'm looking at my schedule and just how I'm feeling at the end of days, like, I'm having to work on Geekvolution stuff after hours on the weekends, and I started trying to work on a rewind last week, DJ, and I was so dead tired just from a day of dealing with the girls that I fell asleep 15 minutes into the movie that I was watching for rewind. I do not have time to write right now. Like, I don't see it. It's not going to happen. And like, nobody panic. Eventually, obviously, I'll get back to it. I've got 8-week-old babies in the house right now, and I can do some stuff, but it's going to have to be off the cuff. There's just no way to do it like that. So, and I really want to get something back in the Rewind podcast feed because I liked doing that as a podcast and having that other avenue for it. And I missed that. So my plan right now, and again, this could also change, but DJ, I'm going to try to start doing, and I've suggested something like this before, I'm going to try to start doing old superhero movies again, just informal and unscripted and off the cuff. and eventually, hopefully, I'll get scripted reviews for those out. But that way, I'll have something, and I can still, if at the end of my life I can't get all the scripted stuff done, I might still be able to say that I reviewed every superhero movie in some capacity. I just wasn't able to do it all written. So that's what I'm hoping to do right now, and I hope people are okay with that compromise as just a replacement for the moment for that. So what I want to do is give them scores and put them in the letterboxd list, but with the assumption that down the road, at least some of those, if not all of them, will get full-on scripted rewinds. That's what I'm thinking about doing right now. I know it's not what anybody wants straight up as the thing I'm doing for that, but it will get more of those things talked about, particularly things that I've never discussed on the channel. There'll be some stuff that I've talked about in some capacity before too, probably, but I'll just keep kind of checking in with these things. Anyway, I hope that's a compromise everybody can live with. If there's just an insane amount of backlash, it might just be months before we talk about an old superhero movie, because the scripted thing is not going to happen right now. It's just unrealistic. I'm realizing.
That totally makes sense. But yeah, look at that. 2 for the price of 1. Did not expect that answer when you asked that question about 1 rewind. John
I was going to get that in here somewhere tonight.
Oh, well, I'm glad you could segue it. That was really good.
Yeah.
So professional. John Ty, was Gore right in believing all gods are uncaring people? And should Thor be unworthy because Nick Fury, as the Watcher, said Gore was right? And I have no idea what he's talking about, so I'm assuming that's from WhatIf.
So he's talking about the Jason Aaron run. And Gore the God Butcher, who is going to be in the new Thor movie, and if memory serves, he's supposed to be played by Christian Bale, which is brilliant casting, but not the movie I want that character in. No, that run is fascinating. I've not read it since shortly after it came out, so it's difficult to speak to this. The tough thing about answering a question like, are all gods uncaring, is that gods aren't real. You know what I mean? So, like, it just depends on, I just mean as, like, the pantheon of gods in the MCU. Like, if you're religious and you worship a god, this is not me saying your god is not real. I'm not saying that.
I actually worship the Greek gods still.
I don't.
I'm offended by that.
I don't know if your god is real. That's not a thing I can know. But I'm just saying that in the context of Marvel, these are fictional beings by and large, and when they're not, it's relative godhood, as I always say. It's up to the individual to decide if they are worthy of being called a god. So somebody with the kind of powers it would take, or powers, ability, immortality, whatever, relative immortality, to be considered a god, must they all be uncaring just because they have power? No, because a lot of those characters, like Thor, are heroic and aren't that way, even if they have slip-ups and they misuse their powers in some way. I don't think Superman is any more or less, and we talk about this kind of thing all the time, I realize, but I don't think Superman is more or less of a god even than Thor, especially the kind that doesn't age because of the yellow sun. And he's not an uncaring person, far from it. So, I, on face value, I would have to say no to that. So I mean, the question of does absolute power ultimately have to corrupt is an age-old question that we're still constantly exploring in fiction. I can't answer that question. It often seems to with people, but might there be a brilliant exception? Can you have that Superman or that Mr. Rogers type? I'd like to think you can. But this is the reason we're still writing stories about this. It's sort of like, and I've said this before with questions like this, it's sort of like asking me, nature versus nurture. Well, I don't know, let's write some stories about it, because that's how we tend to explore it.
Cruella has a very strong argument for nature or nurture. I won't spoil it, but I actually watched that. Did you ever see that?
Sorry, John Kelling just wrote, Cap says your gods aren't real.
I know, I saw that.
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Nothing important. I was talking about Cruella. Jan van der Merwe, Matrix 4 and Eternals look interesting. A little 2 for 1 there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can talk about both of those real quick. Eternals, I don't think I have anything new to add. I saw the new trailer in the theater, and it's been a few days, but I'm gonna put myself in the excited camp now with that movie. I think DJ. It looks potentially unlike anything they've made and real far off the beaten path, and maybe the first thing to break the Marvel formula, wholesale since like Winter Soldier. That's what I'm hoping happens with that. It just looks like a totally new ball game, real fresh, totally different kind of genre and stuff. And I mean, we've been doing more fantasy things with MCU. Let me also backtrack for a second and say that one thing I kind of appreciated about Shang-Chi was that it was further exploring the magic realm that you got with Doctor Strange, but still in a different subgenre, right? So you're in fantasy, and it's doing all that magic stuff, but it's also now a kung fu movie, as opposed to a like traditional, sorcery magic kind of movie. And
a weird thing that happened after Shang-Chi was I wanted to watch Doctor Strange. I can't explain that because it doesn't feel the same at all. But for some reason, after I walked out of Shang-Chi, I wanted to see Doctor Strange again.
No, but it would have made perfect sense as a follow-up. Bear with me for a second. If Doctor Strange had been a Netflix Marvel show and the next Netflix Marvel show they made was Shang-Chi, it would have made perfect sense because like with the Marvel with the Netflix shows they did with Daredevil, it was all street level stuff, and they each felt a little bit different. They were each in arguably different subgenres, right? Interestingly, one of those was also kung fu. Ostensibly, it was terrible, and the action in this is what everybody wanted for Iron Fist. But but this is like that to me. It's like if you had done a bunch of magic shows on Netflix instead of street level shows. Here's your typical kind of sword and sorcery thing. Here's your kung fu thing. Here's your whatever. Eternals seems that way for cosmic and space. And it's weird because Shang-Chi feels like a thing they made because they decided to put Iron Fist on TV. And it didn't work. But also just because they decided not to make Iron Fist a movie, they decided to put it on TV. And I feel like the Iron Fist movie you would have gotten would have been a lot like Shang-Chi. And Eternals feels like exactly that with Inhumans, because Inhumans was supposed to just be them doing X-Men, which is not what Inhumans is at all in the comics. This feels a lot to me like what they would have made for an Inhumans movie had it not been X-Men, because the advertising so far just looks like that TV show but done well. In a lot of ways, but it also just feels like more sober, serious, but still hopefully not unfun, and it doesn't look unfun at all. Space stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy, but again, in a different subgenre in that was quirky sci-fi, and this is almost more science fantasy, or much more broad, heightened, kind of out there science fiction space stuff, and but more, set on the Earth, just from space. Anyway, I think it looks wonderfully whimsical, and I think it looks really elegant. And I think it's potentially going to be the most elegant thing they've made visually.
That's cool. Yeah, I haven't seen anything about it. I haven't watched the trailer, so I'm interested. Like I said, Shang-Chi got me a little bit more excited for some different stuff. I want different stuff.
Yeah, same here. Sure. Which is why I was somewhat disappointed with Shang-Chi, because I felt like in a lot of ways it was kind of more of the same, even though it was in a new subgenre. But we disagree on that, and I'm really glad that you had a different experience than I did with that, because I'm real lukewarm overall on the MCU. I don't know, to some degree. I think it would be more fair to say that I'm open-minded but skeptical, because I feel like some stuff is getting a little phoned in right now. I do feel that way. But I didn't feel that way about Loki, even though I resist some things, or I have reservations about that ending, and that last episode was 35 minutes longer than it needed to be. But anyway.
Someone did ask a super chat about Loki, so we can talk about that. But first,
okay, cool.
Matrix 4 was in that same super chat with Eternals.
So the word of the night is elegant, because that also looks shockingly elegant to me.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and understand, I have huge reservations about that movie, but that trailer did something I didn't think it could do, which is it made me think there's a chance I could take that movie to some degree seriously. What I was expecting, I mean, and that's a tall, that all on its own is a tall order. Because obviously those last two Matrix sequels, years and years ago now. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was like, there's a quote for the box. I can take your movie seriously.
You know, sometimes it feels like that's the standard. Those sequels years and years ago, it felt like obligatory things that shouldn't have been made. This in its, and so what I was expecting going into that was just bat stuff, insane cartoon nonsense. I really thought, not knowing anything going in except a couple of the actors that are in it and the fact that it was happening, because I haven't followed that production at all, and I don't know if there has been information, but I got to be surprised by the premise, which is cool, because that doesn't happen enough with stuff that I'm a fan of, and I'm a big Matrix guy. The Matrix is I think still my favorite science fiction movie, and kind of my favorite movie, at least for genre stuff. My actual favorite movie now is that movie that we just discovered from 1957.
Face in the Crowd.
Face in the Crowd, thanks. For some reason, I couldn't think of that just right there in the moment. But Andy Griffith. And Andy Griffith is suddenly probably my top 10 actors based on solely that performance.
Oh, it's so good. I wish we could talk about it.
We'll talk about it at some point. If you know, on at least Patreon. But you know what? I'm going to make some exceptions here and there for non-comic stuff. Just, it's my channel. I can do what I want to. But for the most part, I'm going to focus mostly on superhero stuff. Anyway, but that new Matrix movie, it looks like it could be making all of the typical mistakes of a decades later sequel. And I've given my hopes up too much on this stuff, so I have to go in with a large degree of skepticism. It certainly looks like potentially greatest hits of the Matrix. It looks like it could beat for beat do that same story again. DJ Neo once again doesn't know that there's a Matrix and has to learn about the Matrix and find out that he's the one again, it looks like. And he's just got to go through that whole thing all over again. I'm hoping that ultimately there's a lot more to it than that, and there are some. So it looks like it could have that Force Awakens problem that everybody complains about, and at the same time, it also looks, like I said, shockingly fun, and elegant looking. It's got some ideas right out the gate that I'm really intrigued by, and I hope they go somewhere cool with, particularly, and I might be reading too much into this, only having a couple minutes of footage. But here's what it looks like to me. We have 3 different kinds of scenes in that trailer. And I haven't, by the way, gone and looked at any articles written about this or anything. This is just me talking about what I've seen. I looked at the trailer like twice. You have... Because right away it doesn't look like a Matrix movie. And I really expected you'd click on that trailer and it would be the Matrix code, like we always did with the previews for those, where you got the code, you got the sound effect, and you got the strings, and I really expected that, and because that's how we always advertise those things. And like years ago, I found myself imagining if they ever make another Matrix movie, wouldn't it be nuts if I'm in a theater, don't even know that it's happening, and suddenly I see the code, and if anybody didn't know about this movie and they saw that trailer, it would be about 30 to 45 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds before they knew it was a Matrix movie, unless they were just like Keanu Reeves, it must be a Matrix movie, because for a second they might even think that it's John Wick or something.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. From the thumbnail, it looks like a John Wick movie.
Yeah, and some of those scenes look like they're kind of shot that way. Now keep in mind, it's got to be a lot of the same stunt people, because the stunt team that made the Matrix is who has made the John Wick movies, and if memory serves, the director of that is one of the stunt coordinators from the Matrix movies. So like those are made by stunt guys, not just the stunt work, but like they're directed and produced by stunt people. And so this is, to some degree, I'm sure going to look a little bit like John Wick because it's those people making it. But you've got 3 different styles of visuals going on in that trailer. It opens with something a lot more like even keel lighting, regular looking movie, not especially stylized. Maybe a little bit like brighter than, in its color palette than most things you would see. And that might be on purpose, I don't know, where it's like, we're not in a utopia, but we're in like a world that's working, as opposed to the Matrix or the real world, right? And you've got Neil Patrick Harris, who we knew was going to be in the movie, but I'd completely forgotten about, being Neo's therapist. And then later on, you have some much more typical color palette scenes where it's real dreary looking, and I can't remember if it's intense greens or blues, but it looks like a Matrix movie in some of the fight scenes. And then you also have the fields of people that are used as batteries, and you clearly do still have the world that Zion is in. I think it's possible that we finally are doing what I always wanted from the Matrix sequels, and there's a Matrix within a Matrix. Or that somehow or rather there are three totally different worlds, where you have a Matrix and you have the real world, and that where Neo is right now and Trinity, who don't know each other, is a yet third thing. But I don't know what that is. When you and I'm not just basing this on color palette. When you get to the end of the trailer, there's a guy who I'm pretty sure we haven't seen anywhere in the rest of the trailer. It's not Neil Patrick Harris, who says, "Oh Neo, you're finally going to go back to the Matrix," which means they're not in the Matrix when he says that, and it doesn't look like the real world either, unless they've built a new Zion that when you're in Zion, somehow, like a bubble city or something that looks more like, real life present day, and then you leave that and it's the dystopian, oppressive future without, the sky in the Matrix. I don't know, but I'm really hoping that it's mind-bendy like that, where it's like worlds inside of worlds, because that's what I always thought it should have been. And I'm really intrigued by the potential of that. I'm just surprised that I'm talking about this with any anticipation at all, because I figured I would see that and go, okay, it's a cartoon, and kind of write it off. Of course, I was always going to see it, but I just assumed, and with as much of an open mind as I could have, but I just assumed it was going to be, preposterous and just continue spiraling that whole thing out of control. It looks like it might not be that, even if it is a little too rehashy, and I think there's real potential for an actual story. I guess we'll find out.
So you have done the impossible and answered a super chat before it was even asked. Clark Kent's Rock and Roll Review just said that Matrix trailer is guilty of reselling us the first movie again. It has the same relationship with the first in the franchise as The Force Awakens has with New Hope. Discuss.
I already did that. Moving right along. Yeah. No, and again, I agree with you. I just think it's possible that there's more going on than that. And I hope that turns out to be the case.
That could be the way they're selling it, but it could be a lot more than that. That could just be the trailer. Hopefully.
It could be that they're showing you all of the, imagery and iconography that you expect from the Matrix, and then when you get there, some of that won't even be in that movie. It's a misdirection, because we do that, or some of it will be flashback stuff, or, there'll be just some other way to kind of get it in there real quick. I don't know. Oh, another weird mind-bendy question. There is a shot of Neo looking into a mirror or some kind of reflective glass, and you see another guy looking back with long hair, and it's like a quantum leap kind of thing. And so that's also a question, is like, are Neo and maybe also Trinity, and we don't even see Morpheus in that trailer anywhere that I noticed, but are at least those two, is it possible that like their consciousnesses are in other kinds of bodies? Because of course they're both dead. We don't know how they're being resurrected. Is it a quantum leap thing? Is it they're in new bodies somehow, or they're like programs that are in new bodies, kind of like the Oracle was in Revolutions, but they but for our benefit, we're seeing them played by the actors that are supposed to play them? There's some interesting questions in there, and it all could be convoluted nonsense and terrible. Eric and I were talking about this a little bit earlier today, and I'm not sure how he got this from this trailer, but I hope he's right about it. He said that he thinks that they're likely to make it social commentary about social media, because how do you not do that in a modern Matrix movie, right? And that it might be about how everybody feels like they live in their own Matrix, like the living in a bubble thing, where the echo chamber problem.
He thinks your own world.
Yeah, and I like that. I don't know what in that trailer is giving him that idea, but I hope he's onto something. However, he got to that.
All right, should we move on?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, the next super chat is from Thomas Ledbetter, and he says, Can we nod the simple but amazing thumbnail by DJ? So thank you so much.
Always applaud DJ for the thumbnails. Yes, they're wonderful.
I have to read it, guys. I'm not a narcissist. This is literally my job. But no, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It was hard because the marketing for Shang-Chi was horrible.
It was really bad.
Like I said, it's such a colorful, vibrant movie, and the fact that all of the posters are just this dingy, dark blue mass of people's faces is such a crime. It's horrible. But I found a poster that I kind of liked, and I balanced it out with the What If, and I gave the What If side of it more of the warm color spectrum to kind of balance out the other side. And I thought it turned out okay.
DJ does not have textbook narcissism. Agreed?
I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe it's just not uncovered yet. Maybe when I turn 30, that'll be what happens. I turn into a jerk. My ex-wife is a cow, speaking of.
Hey, he's back. How's it going?
I don't know if she's a jerk. She's just a cow. Maybe he's a lovable cow. Space is the
maybe
final
that's
frontier.
also a cow, and because if you were a cow and your ex-wife was a cow, you would expect that because you're a cow.
You can't complain.
But you'd also be a cow, and he's just for some reason feeling the need to state the obvious. It'd be like if my handle was my wife is a person.
That would be weird if you were a cow.
It'd be weird if you were a person to write that too. I think. Be weird if you were a cow.
All right, anyway, he says, space is the final frontier.
But it's made in a Hollywood basement. I'm sorry, what?
What comes after?
After the final frontier?
So, what's after the final
there's
frontier?
like a final frontier? The obvious answer, of course, is multiverse, right? You know? Like, if you say, when you say space is the final frontier, you're kind of, you know, in a science fiction setting, you're a little naive about the vastness of reality. And I think it is kind of funny that I never thought of this before, but Star Trek does a lot of stories about other dimensions, but space is the final frontier. It's like, it's actually not if you think about it, because you can go to other universes in Star Trek.
Yeah, if you're going by the Fast and the Furious rules, space is not the final because there's another one even after it. So who knows what they'll do? Maybe they will hop dimensions. I haven't seen those movies. I've just heard that they go to space. Sorry if it's a spoiler. I think that movie's old. Super Billy.
That also totally sounds... I don't think you can put that past them. I mean, those are basically superhero movies at this point.
Oh, yeah. Some of the more...
You get into the Fast and the Furious... I guess it already is sort of a shared universe, right? But you get the... Because aren't they, like, spinning off characters and stuff? I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, The Rock has to do his own movies because he can't be on screen with Vin Diesel anymore because they hate each other. Super Billy.
I thought it was just because he can't not be in a movie at least one time a month. Like, I think he has a 12-month-a-year contract, that guy.
Yeah, he's nuts. He's a workaholic. He's like you, Cap. Exactly like you. Cap is like The Rock.
Not in any way whatsoever. Agreed?
Super Billy gives us $2, and he's ashamed of it, but I'm not. Thank you.
He's ashamed of giving us his $2?
Yes, because his super chat is, sorry for being broke, fellas. Yay, Cap and friends.
Oh, dude, thanks, man. No, we appreciate it.
Hey, goodness. I mean, if you're broke and you give us $2, my goodness.
Never gotta apologize for the contribution. You don't have to apologize for not giving a contribution either. We really appreciate you just being here.
Exactly. $10 from Game Station 3. I am sorry. Oh, not good when he starts a question by already apologizing. I'm sorry, but I am still shocked that you called the Uncle Ben scene in Spider-Man 2 outlandish. It's a beautiful scene, and you are taking it way too literally. Stop thinking about how he's doing it.
So I've gotten that comment before, possibly by the same person, and that's a thing I said quite a while back. I'm apparently still paying for this. It's just how I felt about it then. I still kind of feel that way about it. I'm glad that scene spoke to you. It's just, I need internal logic for a thing like that. Like, we can agree to disagree on this, but literarily, it's just kind of, at least in my world, just kind of easy and lazy and sort of a faux pas, to with no, actual, like, real story context whatsoever, just have a person having a conversation with a dead person, because it's just too easy. It's like, because you're basically admitting the limitations too much of the medium you're in, right? And that might be, and some people would make this argument the other direction. They go, well, you're too limited, so you have to do stuff like that because you can't just have a character. How else do you convey certain information or have a character come to a realization? Because you can't just do description on paper, you can't do internal monologue. I mean, you sort of can in those movies because Spider-Man's constantly monologuing, but you wouldn't do that kind of monologuing.
Well, and if that movie was more ethereal and abstract, then it would be okay. But that's a pretty straightforward.
But it's not that kind of movie.
World.
Yeah, it's too straightforward. Yeah. And I have this issue with lots of stuff. I mean, I wasn't just calling that out when I said that. I feel like I'm having to defend just like whatever I've ever said in videos. It's been a long time since we talked about this. But I've had this issue with things like the old Arrow episode 3 Ghosts, where you have a guy who, not on drugs or anything if memory serves, is just hallucinating characters so that he can have conversations with them. This is just not a thing that people do. It doesn't happen to people. It takes me out. I don't understand what's causing this. And if it's a thing that you're simply literalizing, you just got to find some way to communicate that to me, that's really what's happening, is that this isn't literal. So when you say that I'm making it too literal, the movie is not playing straight with me. Like, I don't feel like I have any reason not to take it literally. Everything else in the movie is literal, except for that one thing. So, like, how's that being communicated to me? I don't know. It maybe wouldn't be as big of a deal if it was just like, a dream sequence or something where, even if the guy was just sleeping, it would make it a little easier for me to swallow. I can't really remember what's around that, but I don't think it's like, he talks to Uncle Ben and then he wakes up from bed. Like, I think,
no,
like,
he's
I
just
think it was
sitting in bed looking at his hand, like just thinking.
Yeah, it was kind of, I don't know. There just wasn't really anything to that. And again, if it doesn't bother you, great. It's just on a literary level, it's a pet peeve of mine. What I'm trying to say is the bigger issue is that it's used for motivation. That is in and of itself an opportunity for change. Very lazy opportunity for change because it's all in his head. So I don't know. I have a tough time with that.
Yeah.
It's not anything like. Sorry, it's not anything like as bad as the John Kent scene.
I was gonna make a joke about that
in Man of Steel, but
because he learns new information in that one, which is even worse. But yeah, if only Uncle Ben had downloaded his consciousness into a key and given it to Peter before he died, then you could have that scene. I mean,
you got to remember that these were the writers of Smallville, and they did this kind of thing in that show all the time. And I complain about it there, and I'm complaining about it with Spider-Man. Jedi Knight says, I don't get why his powers suddenly don't work for no reason other than plot. Yeah, exactly. And it's in that same vein. It's
everything
the same
about
kind of problem.
Is lazy.
Yeah.
And they just magically start working again because his girlfriend's kidnapped.
Yeah, and it's like his powers weren't tied to confidence before. In fact, he was arguably less confident when he got them.
Yeah, he got his confidence from his powers.
Yeah.
The opposite.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
All right.
In and of itself doesn't ruin that movie. And I mean, I still enjoy a lot of things about that movie. But, yeah.
Also, the choreographer from Shang-Chi did that movie.
Interesting.
Maniac Madness 11, $5. Which movie do you think had more of an impact on how big budget movies are made today? Inception or The Matrix?
I have to say The Matrix. Overall, definitely. And so I'm not taking any pot shots or trying to lessen the wonderfulness that is Inception. I've not seen that movie in a really long time, and I need to watch it again. I don't know it super well, but I don't know how influential that movie is over just Nolan's body of work on the whole. Like I feel like The Matrix as an entity has this huge impact on filmmaking in general, just by itself, more than the Wachowskis as directors did. Like, there's no other movie you can really point to that they made that had any impact at all on the way people are making movies, I would argue. I feel like Nolan, from the moment Begins comes out, of course Dark Knight, but even within those 3 years, Begins didn't make a ton of money, but I'm telling you, even before Dark Knight came out, there were already movies that were cribbing that score, and some of the things about the way that movie looked. From that movie onward, Nolan, as his body of work as a director, influences and changes the way movies are made. And I don't mean every movie, but at least a few of them. And so I would argue that Inception is in there with the Batman movies as a big influencer, from that guy, but not just on its by its lonesome.
Yeah, on the whole, I would say definitely Matrix, but musically, I would say Inception had a bigger impact because everything sounded like Inception for 10 years, where it was just...
That's true, but I'm still going to say Inception and on top of Dark Knight, because a lot of the movies that were doing that blah thing were also taking a bunch of other things that Zimmer did specifically from the Batman movies. Yeah. Like, I feel like you got to marry those things together. Daniel Davis says Not Even Begins, but Memento before that. I don't know how influential Memento's style was on other movies before other Nolan movies came out after that. Like, it's possible that people went back and saw Memento after Nolan got big, and then that was more influential. And I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm saying I don't know. I can't think of examples right now where, like, Memento was affecting things. But maybe because it was, an independent movie that was, surprisingly watched. And a lot of filmmakers saw that movie. So I mean, you might be right. I'm just saying I don't know.
Here's $5 pops in for one super chat.
Welcome back.
He says, "What if I gave you $6?" Psych. Wow. Here's $5.
Would you have to change your name at that point, or are you just?
I don't know. That'd be a lot harder to keep consistent. I feel
you just being controversial?
I mean, that's his MO, isn't it? Controversial. But yeah, thank you for the $5. As always, good to see you back. Good to see all you guys back.
Welcome back.
I missed you guys so much. Yeah. It's been so fun. Time is flying by. It feels great. How
long have we been? Yeah, an hour 20 already? Goodness. We've got so many super chats. I'm sure we'll go for at least 2 hours tonight. I'm going to try to cap it off right around then because I've got to go upstairs and help my family and stuff. I say 2 hours. We had to start a little late tonight, so... at least 40 minutes, but maybe longer. It just depends on what's happening here. So let's blow through some of these. Do you have any sense of a count of how many questions we've got left?
I do not, but I can count after we get this one started. Real quick, Lewis Cox gives us $2 just to say, "Oh hey, Cap is back. Hey DJ." That's right. I'm the afterthought, but I'll take it. And good to see you, Lewis Cox.
DJ is starting to not so subtly vie for getting his name in the title. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but he's positioning himself. He's like... I'm
just reading the questions. Hey, I'm just glad I'm getting noticed in the questions. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
It's like, God, what am I a second? Okay, look, if you have to have your name in it, we can renegotiate the contract. Okay.
No, I was saying afterthought because he gave me after the comma. I was before the comma. It looks kind of like direct address, so it's like, "Oh, hey, Cap is back. Hey, DJ." I don't know. But we
have the least professional contract ever. It's not even a handshake contract because I've only seen DJ in person once, and I don't think we shook hands. We might have. I forget. But it wasn't to seal the deal or anything.
No, we definitely hugged. Maybe some cuddling, but I don't know if we shook hands. Burned In. I'm going to get you rolled on this one because this is a big one. $20 from Burned In.
Wow. Well, thanks so very much. Appreciate it. You've made me speechless. I'm like putting... I've got mutant words happening. Sorry, good.
Mutant words. I love it. I've never agreed the Matrix sequels are soulless studio cash-ins. I think they're big idea, expensive auteur failures. Bad, but very interesting. This is why I'm unironically excited for the fourth. What's your opinion on this?
So I've talked at length about that in the commentaries that I did with Eric on the Matrix sequels, but I've always been really of two minds about all of that because, at least with the second one, because I enjoy that movie immensely, and I mean, I had the worst watch I've ever had with Eric, but I'm sure next time I go back and watch it, I'll have more fun with it again. Boy, that was... I got finished with that movie with Eric, and I was like, I don't know if I ever want to watch this again after this. Like, just so many things we found ourselves complaining about. There is fun to be had with those, and yes, some big ideas, and I agree with you that they're failures for all the reasons you were saying. But I do think that they were initially made as studio cash grabs. Like, I do still think that they fall in that category, even if you think that the finished product was there was a little bit more going on with that. Or than that. I think that was just because of the people who made them. I mean, you know, a movie hits like lightning the way The Matrix does, makes the kind of money it does, gets the kind of critical acclaim it does, and a studio is going to be, you know, screaming at the people making it to come back and do another one. And I've never heard the story there, you know, whether the Wachowskis came to them or they came to the Wachowskis, but I would be shocked if they went to Warner's and were like, hey, look, our movie's succeeding, can we make another one? Like, the problem is, just, like I said, I feel like motivationally I can't see that comes from any other place than cash grab, but also we weren't initially very smart about how to make a sequel to that movie natural and believable. Like, we had to really retcon some stuff and do a lot of backtracking. Right away, it's like, well, we're gonna have to defang Neo and not make him as powerful as he was at the end of the last movie. And just right away, that makes it. I mean, it's gonna be a lot harder to tell a story, obviously, if you don't do that. But when you say big ideas, like, some of the ideas on paper in those philosophically are big, you know, fascinating ideas. But the conceit of the thing had to get compromised to get there, and I have a hard time not continuing to call it a cash grab because of that. And that third movie is one of the most obligatory, you know, not remotely imaginative things I've ever seen. So, like, I'm not with you on that at all. It's just boring and no fun at all. But Reloaded definitely has its merits, at least as an entertainment and as a what's the word I'm looking for? As a spectacle.
So I did some counting while you were chatting there, and we've got about 15.
Wow. Were you counting any Cryptofreaks by chance?
I make it a point to not count Cryptofreaks, lest I get sucked into an impossible-to-finish project like some other unfortunate souls I've been acquainted with.
It is still, of course, we're not quite at the end of the 20th anniversary of Smallville, and I still haven't really done anything for that this year. In fact, if I was regularly making shows right now, I would have tried to do something this week or next week. I'd have to go back and look at the exact date, but I think we should be right into the first week that show was released, because we're in early September, and that's when that show started in 01. And I would have liked to have done something on the day of the first broadcast, and it just has not been in the cards. I keep telling you guys about things I'm planning to do. I can't promise that specific things will happen, but I've got to do something on Smallville this year if at all humanly possible, and I just don't know what exactly that's going to look like yet, because I don't know what I've got time to do. I've had a few people recently that have been begging me to bring, you know, the commentary show back. I really appreciate that. I really want to do that. It's just a matter of, you know, how often can I do that, and how consistent can I be about it? Because I left in the middle of season 3, and there's 10 seasons of that show, and it would take forever to finish it. So it's like, do I put them out every so often and just let it not get done until I'm in my 50s, or do I
abandon your children and wife and just knock it out? What do you do?
Exactly. Yeah. Those priorities are very difficult. Anyway.
Adam March says, Counting Cryptofreaks confirmed for the Welder channel. Haha. No. Adam March, don't put that into the universe.
Let's do it, DJ. I'll bring that show back right now if you agree to do it with me. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's a big ask.
I know it is.
I have to be a real good friend. I don't know if I'm that good of a friend.
I have always done that show solo, and I would feel kind of weird about dragging somebody in and forcing them to watch it with me, but
man, I, who like gave up on that show 3 seasons in, still watched all of it though, because I was a crazy
you finished it
young person. But
do you remember anything at all about 9?
The box set that's coming out this week.
Yeah, I want that.
It looks so cool, and
do you remember
it looks cool.
Anything at all about 9?
No. 9, I remember the cover is like he wears that black trench coat.
Yeah, but so that whole thing is dumb though, right? Because they do a figurative death of Clark Kent. So the whole thing is like, well, we can't have Death of Superman because he's not Superman, but we had Doomsday in a fight for 45 seconds, like just zoomed in on spikes, you can't even see anything, and then we take, see, now I just want to make more of the show, and then,
hey, it would be fun, I would say that. It would be long and tiresome, but it would be fun.
And then Clark's like, well, I'm going to put too many people at risk, Clark Kent is dead, and then he puts on his black t-shirt with the Superman symbol, right? And then, that lasts for an episode, maybe two. So it's great that the cover of season 9 is him wearing that because he stops wearing it like very, very quickly.
Yeah, they're like, okay, is that the one with the zombie? Is that the season with the zombie episode?
I think it is, but I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that's the second Zod season, right?
I think so.
Isn't that the one where we bring in the other Zod? 8
Zod.
is Doomsday, 9 is Zod, and like New Krypton or whatever. I guess it's not actually New Krypton, but Zod trying to take
7
over.
is Justice Society, right? 5 is Justice League. 7
Justice
is
Society is 8. I want to say. I think that doesn't happen until 8. I could be wrong. It's been a really long time, but I'm pretty sure Lex is out of the show by the time that happens. And that was a shockingly great episode of that season. Here's the weird thing, though. 8, first half, kind of dug. It had a real different like tone and flavor to it. There was an arc at the beginning, kind of a mystery thing that was working, kind of interesting. And I didn't mind the Doomsday guy, Sam Witwer. I'm trying to remember his character name, and it's not coming to me.
Was it something with a D? Was it Derek or?
No, I can't remember. Was it something? Was it Bloom or something? No, what is? I can't remember. And then 10 was the Dark Side.
Orlando. That might have been the funniest thing that I've ever read from Mr. Roboto. He just left a regular chat and said, "My two Zods," which is really funny.
That's great.
Should have been the name of an episode.
But yeah, cinematographic. Yeah, 6 is Justice League because that's where we bring in Justin Hartley and we do the initial kind of faux Justice League, and then
he's in something. He's in an animated movie that just came out, isn't he, Justin Hartley?
That hasn't come out yet. I don't know who he's voicing. Maybe it is Green Arrow. I'm not sure, but he's doing he's doing Injustice.
Oh, wow.
He's in that. As is. It's funny because I saw the names, but I don't know who anybody is voicing. As is Anson Mount, I think. The guy who's
Davis Bloom. So you
Davis
were right
Bloom.
about
I was all over it. I haven't seen that in years and years. Oh, would somebody do me a favor and please ask about Star Trek? Because I really want to ramble about that at some point, if at all possible.
Yeah, that has not come up, surprisingly.
I think at some point I might just stop everything and do it, but I have to talk about that tonight. Please help me not to forget that. Okay. You want to talk about the Injustice thing for just a second? That trailer dropped today.
Sure, I haven't seen it. I just saw that his name was on it.
Or maybe yesterday. It's crazy how much news there just suddenly is in the last couple of days. Like, if we had done this show last week, there wouldn't have been anything like as much to talk about. You know what else is funny?
Exactly.
I want to say we haven't done a show since the No Way Home trailer. I don't think anybody's asked about that.
Someone did in the Super Chats. We will get to it.
Okay, cool. Had that come out by the time we did the last show, or was that after that?
I think it was after the last show.
So we haven't talked about that yet?
No.
Okay. I was racking my brain trying to remember that today, and I couldn't. Anyway, so Injustice is getting an animated movie, and it is based, as far as all the evidence looking at the movie, on pretty much solely the comics. And I can't help but be excited about that because I really like what I've read of that book. I read the first year. I've talked about this before. I've read the first year of that like 3 or 4 times, planning on reviewing it and then doing more of it, and I never get around to the review. And then when I go to read year 2, I can't remember enough of what happens in year 1, so I reread year 1. So I've read that like 4 times. I don't know if the movie is just covering that section or a lot more of it. I really hope that it's not too truncated and that it doesn't cover too much time. I think that could potentially be a great series of movies if it does well, if it's popular. The animation style is fine. Nothing super special to me. Looks like the movies they've been putting out lately, which I like the animation very often better than the character models. That Superman movie, I really did like the character models. This just looks fine to me, but it is those costumes. It does look like Injustice. Yeah, I can't help but be excited about it. And I've been thinking about I forgot they were making that movie, and I've been thinking about doing some Injustice content lately. So if I go ahead and start doing that soon, reviewing some of those books, it would be a really good time to do that. It would be surprisingly timely. DJ, I was also kicking around doing the unscripted rewind thing I was talking to you about on just the gameplay story from that game, because I've gotten requests for that before. Fun. And I thought about just watching, one of the. I mean, I'll go back and play the game a little bit too, but I'm thinking about just people make those like movie versions where they take all the cutscenes and they put them on YouTube, and I'm thinking about just watching that like a movie and talking about the narrative.
Yeah, someone just mentioned that there's been a lot of DC animated movies this year. I was going to say, I bet if you counted everything up, Marvel and DC this year, this might be one of the, if not the biggest year of releases, because Marvel's been releasing stuff pretty much every month since
Some April. Of that is because we got nothing last year, so there's all this catch-up that's happening. But it's not
caveat, but it's been crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like we were able to make a bunch of new stuff for this year too. I mean, we're still releasing stuff behind. So I guess what we're finding is 2020 would have been the biggest year for superhero movies, but frickin' nothing could come out.
Yeah, but there's been how many DC animated movies? Like 4 already?
A shocking number. I've been using that word a lot.
So many.
A ridiculous amount. I don't know how. It's been that many, because that's never happened before.
Yeah, Marvel and DC have been.
I haven't seen that Justice Society thing yet. I bought that; it's behind me. We've had definitely at least 4 if you count Long Halloween is 2, and I haven't watched the second part of that yet. By the way, like I said, I don't have time for spoiler cast right now, so I'm probably gonna have to also just talk about that on this show. So once I get around to it, I'll try to weigh in on that, but Nicholas Montez says, I don't get what's the point of the movie. Well, with respect, I think you could say that about anything adapted from comics, right? Because it's not just the game story. Like, the comic story is not contradictory as far as I remember it and understand it from the game story, but the game does this whole unnecessary, in my opinion, interdimensional thing that's convoluted and it feels too much like a Mortal Kombat story. And of course, it's made by the Mortal Kombat people. It's essentially a Mortal Kombat game, so it's not surprising that that's where they went with it. But Taylor's stuff is more down to earth than that, and about specifically the universe where Superman goes bad after he murders the Joker, and so it's an adaptation of comics, and so I guess my answer to that would be the point is, especially for folks that don't read comics, they'll get to see that story. Hopefully it's good. But I think I had that thought for a second too until I saw the trailer, because I didn't know if it was going to actually be based on Tom Taylor stuff, and it seems to be. So I was like, oh good, there is reason for this to exist.
All right, well, I'm glad we got to talk about that too. We're covering a lot of ground here.
He says Injustice would be the 5th this year.
Oh, so it was 4. Wow.
Is that right? Because we had that and I don't know which ones count and which ones don't, because I don't know which ones are made by specifically the team that's officially making those right now. But you had the 2 Long Halloweens, and you had the Kung Fu Batman movie. What was that called? Something Dragon. And then you had that Justice Society thing. So if that counts, I guess that is 4. Yeah.
Wow. Next up is from John Ty.
Hello, John.
What comics have you been reading lately?
Daniel Davis just says "Sweet Jesus." I don't even know what he's responding to, but I felt the need to read that. Look, anything that you write here could get read on camera.
Yeah.
It could. It's possible. I'm sorry. What was the question?
What comics have you been reading lately?
Let me think for a second. So I went through a few, because it's been a while since I've seen you guys. A few weeks ago, I went through and binged a lot of the recent Tomasi Batman stuff, which a lot of it was fun, but I thought a little hacky. And I felt like he was trying really hard to be kind of Snyder and Tom King all at the same time. And then he started to kind of carve out his own niche with that a little bit. It felt like his run really starts after Joker War, because Joker War felt like he was trying to accommodate like a culmination and combination of everything that came before him over the last few years with Joker War, and that was fun to read, but I think ultimately it's a little fanficky. It's not Dan Slott fanficky, but it's a little fanficky. And then he started getting into his own story about Batman having to stop using all of the super advanced technology he uses because he loses his fortune. Spoiler alert. And that was starting to look like it could get really interesting. I wasn't a big fan of some of the new characters he was introducing. I thought they were a little bit generic and kind of lame, potentially. But I thought that it was starting to really maybe go somewhere, and he was carving out his own, his own area. And apparently he's about to leave that book. So I wish that he had started all of that somehow before the first couple arcs he did. But anyway, so I've read some of that. And I was going through some 90s Birds of Prey for a while. It's been a few weeks since I got back to that. I have read, because I've always called myself a Birds of Prey fan, but I haven't read enough actual Birds of Prey, so I'm trying to justify calling myself that. And then I've read the Back to the Future Transformers crossover, which was delightful. The clock tower becomes a transformer. It's wonderful. That was a lot of fun. I might review that at some point. And then I read a thing that I did a video on with Austin that will come out in a couple 3 weeks. That I won't tell you what it is yet. But those are some things.
What a tease.
That I have read recently. And I was reading something just the other day. I can't remember. There was a Black Label Joker series that I read the first issue of and was intrigued by and liked quite a bit. I can't remember what that's called. That just started, a year or two ago. I've been trying to catch up on some things. But there's a lot of distractions in my house, so it's hard to, focus as hard as I'd like to, or I would if I was doing a review. So there's some things that are kind of slipping out of my mind right now. But yeah, I've been reading some stuff.
Cool. Next up.
Carl Maxey. Punchline is the worst DC character I've witnessed. I only disagree with that because Joker's daughter exists, but hilariously, they're both crappy Joker sidekicks. And I guess Joker's daughter is not technically a sidekick. Whatever. She's awful. She's more awful than Punchline, but only by, that much. Yeah, Punchline's dumb. And for some reason, I own her one-shot. I don't even know how I got that. I didn't buy it on purpose.
Oh. Well, you said that it sounded like you were talking about a disease or something. I don't even know how I got that. I didn't get it on purpose.
You guys remember when we had to go into quarantine and shut down the whole world at the beginning of 2020 because a bunch of people got the punchline? The punchline virus. You know how you're not supposed to say the C virus name on YouTube where you get demonetized? See what I did? That's why I didn't say it. I'm just going to start calling it the punchline virus.
The C word virus, yes.
Right. You see, when you say that, you just expect it to be the crap virus. Oh, the crap virus! It's getting us. It's getting us all. The crap virus.
Josh Galisano, how do you feel about What If potentially crossing over with other MCU things like Doctor Strange 2?
I know there's a lot of people that are worried about this. I'm reserving judgment because if we're doing the big multiverse thing and we want to... If we're doing the big multiverse thing, it only stands to reason that we would have some alternate versions of characters we know already. And just because an episode from that show is not the best doesn't mean that there might not be some interesting things we could do with that character. Or with some of those characters. I really don't mind, and I know some people will, I don't mind the idea of Captain Carter showing up in something if it's written well. I think that could be cool. I don't have a problem with that personally. I feel like for some folks, I'm supposed to. I don't have a problem with that. I expect it absolutely to happen. It's also a way for some of those characters, or some of those actors who want to still be in the MCU, whose characters have been written out in some way, to come back and keep doing stuff. Because Carter, unless we suddenly came back and did a third season of that TV show, there's no real way for her to be in movies right now, and I get the sense that there's no reason she wouldn't want to keep doing them. Personally, I don't really have a problem with that. I think I I'll be cryptic when I say this, but the whole like Strange Supreme thing, that felt like an intention in that episode. That felt like an intentional introduction of a character that they're planning on using later. And that one actually, as much as I like that episode, that actually slapped me in the face a little bit, where it was like, oh, you guys are trying to like make up a big thing here that we're going to use later. I've always been weird. I will say this. I've always been weird with continuity in different mediums. I've never really loved doing live action that's also canonical with animation. It's just weird in my head. I have a hard time reconciling it. Very often just because of tones, if nothing else. Sometimes it's because there's so much more you can do visually in animation than you can in live action, so it just doesn't even feel like you're playing fair. It's like, well, you wouldn't have been able to do that in live action, so like it's weird that this counts. But also just sometimes you'll have cartoony sensibilities in a thing that you wouldn't have in live action. It's part of the reason that I have a hard time considering Star Trek the Animated Series, for instance, canonical with Star Trek. And so that can be weird. Having said that, What If is maybe a horse of a different color, because I don't know how else you would do that show, but in animation, because you can't get all those actors back, and I wouldn't want to see everybody recast. We'd all be confused. If you do, the characters would walk into a scene like, who the heck is that supposed to be?
Yeah, it would feel like them doing a Marvel MCU play, where everyone's just cosplaying as the Marvel
For the most
characters.
part, even the episodes that I haven't liked, they haven't felt like Saturday morning cartoony, so I don't have as much of a problem with it. But also, I'm okay with it for just What If is a thing, because of just the premise where they feel like they're not actually real canonical things, we're just showing what might have happened if it went a different way. But it's also part of the greater multiverse, and if we start introducing those characters in live action, that's going to get weird. So, like, I do feel funky about it because of the whole medium crossing thing, but I also want to be open-minded about it, because if some of those characters end up being really interesting and written well and acted well, I just know they're going to do one, and I'm going to go, well, I feel weird about this, but thank God they did it. This thing was really cool. I bet that happens somewhere. I should also tack on real quick, because I didn't talk about this earlier when we were doing, I don't know what this is. I didn't mention this earlier when we were talking about What If.
You look like Paul Revere. Just
I feel like I'm Bible thumping, like in a pulpit. I think some of the voice acting from pre-established live-action actors has been really hit or miss. Like, we're seeing the people that have never voice acted before and don't know what to do behind a microphone without standing in a scene and actually acting. And that has been detrimental to some of those episodes. And rest in peace, but I feel like Chadwick Boseman was one of those. I don't think he was great. Behind a microphone. I just mentioned him because he's the first person that came to mind. I'm trying to remember some others. I thought, and not everybody agrees with me on this, I thought that Cumberbatch did fine with it in his episode. But man, some of those I think have been kind of rough. And I thought what's her face that plays Agent Carter, I thought she was fine with voice acting.
That makes sense. I think Cumberbatch has done some voice work. I know he's at least done some narration for like documentaries and stuff, so that makes sense. Where are we going next? Where are we going? Well, Devontae Brown wants to take us into Spider-Man territory. No Way Home trailer thoughts? Seems like leaks are true.
It does. I still have that thing where it's like, which leaks and how many of them. But you know what my first reaction was to that trailer?
I do not. I have not seen it.
So have we talked about? When you haven't seen the trailer, I don't even want to talk about it. You haven't seen the trailer.
I can leave. I can take a restroom break.
I'm sure you've heard everything by now.
You could talk about it. Yeah, people have been talking about it in Discord.
All right, so Doctor Strange.
I hate that we know so much about it, but
I do. I hate that too. So Doctor Strange and Peter Parker basically do one more day in the jokiest way possible. And I do really like, by the way, that it doesn't seem like we're adapting One More Day so much as making a big, negative consequence to making the whole world forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, as if the movie is saying, see, this is why One More Day was a really bad idea. And I like that about it. But they seem, first of all, let me just say this real quick. They both seem, just without seeing the whole movie, and hopefully it doesn't feel this way as much when I see it. I know a lot of people feel this way about it, but they just both seem incredibly irresponsible and somewhat out of character for handling that the way they're handling it. Doctor Strange is just, it seems way too flippant about the whole thing. But I haven't actually seen the whole film yet, so I'm trying to reserve judgment on it. I'm just saying what it looks like just looking at that trailer so far. Anyway, so they're like, oh, let's make it so that the whole world forgets that Peter Parker's Spider-Man. The motivation seems sound enough, because it seems like they're gonna lay it on real thick, where there's a lot of really good reasons, and not just selfish ones, for why Peter Parker thinks that it's bad for the world to know that he's Spider-Man. And also, at least we're not clearing that up in the first 5 seconds of the movie, like DJ, we were kind of afraid they might do. Where it's like, they just kind of sweep it under the rug, and they're not doing that, so that's good. But anyway,
the old Aunt May treatment, as we call it.
Yeah, again, probably the second most shafted. So then, Peter is thinking about all the things that he wishes he could change about the world, and he accidentally taps into the multiverse, apparently, Doctor Strange, with the spell he's doing, and characters from Spider-Man movies that aren't related to this universe that you've seen before suddenly all populate our world. And it seems like the way the trailer is cut, it's like they're all coming out at the same time. And I don't suspect that will actually happen, but maybe. Where you got Green Goblin's Pumpkin Bomb, and you don't actually see Green Goblin, but you hear Defoe's laugh in the background. And then you see Doc Ock. And you know what I was thinking, DJ? It's like, you know what they're making with this? It's not Spider-Verse. You know what it is? It's Goosebumps. That's what it is. The movie is Goosebumps.
Goosebumps did it better. Boo.
It's exactly the same thing.
Please chant that in your theater when you go see it. That would be amazing.
Because Goosebumps is... there's a Goosebumps book that if you open it, all of the stuff from all the different universes of R.L. Stine come out at one time and start attacking everything. That's what this looks like. It's Goosebumps. And now that I've seen it, I cannot unsee it. And something about just like the comedic tone of all of that, it's exactly what it felt like. It's cooler with this because it's at least actor cameos. So if you were into Goosebumps books, you're like, hey, this character I recognize, and here's this actor I know. So that makes it maybe a little bit more fun. But I can't believe it. It's Goosebumps. I'm probably not the only person that thought of that, but I haven't talked to anybody else. I had to say that. That was my first reaction. This is crazy.
Quote for the box. It's Goosebumps.
I'm assuming that they're having to take the de-aging thing to 11, because Doc Ock at the end of that trailer looks, at least from where I was sitting, exactly like he did more or less in Spider-Man 2, and that was a thing we talked about before. Where it was like, well, how do you bring in these characters that we know died but are supposed to be from these other universes? Oh, you Goosebumps did. Okay,
you Goosebumps it.
Yeah. That's how we did that. But you know what the nice thing about that is? It's going to be harder for those characters to take over the film. That's what's nice about that, is it has to be more or less our Peter Parker story. Because these other characters are basically just going to be, like, for lack of a better way of putting it, like NPCs or something, right? Like, they get brought in from another universe, and when they get sent back to it's like Jumanji or something. Like,
yes, just keep going with the comparisons, because you're knocking them out of the park. Jumanji 3.
Yeah.
Oh no, 4, I guess. There's already a 3. I never saw that one. Did you see the second Jumanji?
Yeah, I did. It was more of the same, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. And then the end of that movie was them swearing that they weren't going to make the same movie for the third one. It's hilarious. Like, they set up the premise for the third one, like, nobody worry, we're doing this other thing. Mr. Roboto, I've had that same question. He says, is this how Venom meets Peter Parker? I think that, and I've said this before, but having seen this trailer, I'm wanting to double down on it. I said that, it's like NPCs or something. Like, you pull all these people from their universes, later you extinguish them in some way. I guess it's also possible that we somehow blend some universes, like, strategically with this. I don't know if that'll happen, but I still think the timing is really convenient, that you would have a Venom movie that has Michael Keaton in it, and you're also doing a multiverse Spider-Man movie where you bring a bunch of his characters all together.
Michael Keaton's in Morbius, but yeah.
That's what I meant to say was, sorry, but that you're, did I say Venom? That you're doing a movie in that universe that has Michael Keaton in it.
Mm-hmm.
His Vulture.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I still think that it's possible that that's how all that happens, and that it would be, maybe I've said this before, it would be really stupid if we're going multiversal and making a big deal out of other movies being part of our multiverse, and the Sony side, meanwhile, still doesn't understand the difference between them and the MCU. That's freaking crazy if they can't figure that out. Because we know that a few years ago, some of those people had not figured that out yet, because there was an argument between I think it was what's her name, the lady that runs the Spider-Man stuff at Sony, Amy Pascal. There was that famous thing with, if memory serves, it was Amy Pascal and it was Kevin Feige, and she was like, oh yeah, it's the MCU, and he's like, no it's not, no, don't say that, and yeah, it's hilarious, and like if she still doesn't get it, it's just it's the shared multiverse is overhead.
Oh man, good times. Yeah, I'm glad you had a lot to say about that, because I can't muster up any will to care at all. I haven't even watched the trailer.
I mean, I don't even know if excitement is the right word. I am less. In some ways, I'm less concerned about it than I was, because I was afraid that the whole thing was going to be there to wrap up storylines and things for movies with franchises that are done already. And as much as it's sad that, Amazing is finished and didn't actually get an ending, this is not the place to do that. You kind of wasted your last movie, character progression wise. So I don't want to see that. I think there's a good chance that's not what we're doing here. I mean, hopefully if we bring in the other Spider-Mans, they get some things to do, but I don't want them to take over the movie. Especially because Spider-Verse showed us how to do that right. It would be unacceptable for a live-action Spider-Man to not handle that correctly.
Yeah, especially after you had the blueprint. Anyway, Roger Lee, $10.
Hello, Connor! Connor says, guys, what is up? I've missed you guys. I hope I haven't missed much. Well, we've been going for a couple hours, so you've missed like a little, like this much.
You missed a lot, man.
Oh my god! I'm sorry, I just dropped my PS4.
Cap's so upset with you, he dropped his PS4.
I don't think it's broken. I think it's okay.
Okay, that's good.
Hey, does anybody have a PS2 you're not using that I could buy for like real cheap? Somebody message me if you have a PS2 that you want to get rid of, because I don't know, I might as well do this here, because I had to replace one, and the one I replaced it with died a week later. I have two non-working PS2s stacked on top of each other right now. I have this library of like 50 PS2 games my kids can't play right now. I need to get a PS2 again at some point, and I just got done dropping $80 on one. If anybody's got one, you can cut me a little bit of a better deal than that. Let me know, because I need to get another one, and hopefully it works. I'd rather buy it from you. That's right, you. I'm talking to you.
Yeah, he's coming to you first with this once-in-a-lifetime offer of you selling him your stuff.
Yeah, for cheaper than I can buy it on eBay. That's the caveat. That's important.
Isn't that exciting for you?
John just said, I have a PS2. I have to steal it from my neighbor first. I missed you guys. Sometimes we do the show and I wonder why we don't do this every day. And then I'm like, well,
exactly.
I have 5 kids.
I know.
And I'm not going to call that a mistake or anything, but
we don't need sleep. We'll just do it. Let's do this as like a morning show. Let's wake up at 5 a.m. Have no one listening.
They wouldn't. Well, they wouldn't. Thomas, well, that's true. I could just play my Dreamcast. I don't have as many games for that as I wish I did, but... Anyway, how many Super Chats do we have left? Because it's already after 9, and I should probably wrap up at some point.
I think more than the last time you asked me.
You're joking. It was like 15. Okay, I'm going to send my wife a message. I'm going to ask her not to leave me over this.
20. We have 20. We've
Let's rapid fire it. Here we go.
All right, rapid fire, starting with a $10.
I'm going to rapid fire for as long as my wife will allow me to get away with it. And if we have to save some for the next show, guys, I apologize. I hope we don't have to do that. But please bear with us. I know I was lengthy with some of these questions, but it was a big day for news, and I wanted to give everything its due. So, You know what? If you're upset with me, it's justified, but I don't know what this is either. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands this evening. It's just this whole thing.
Whoa,
it's like finger origami. Sorry, what?
Oh man! Oh hey, look at that! Hey, video
hey!
Game Secrets.
I don't know what
here.
we're excited about right now. Oh, Jason?
Jason says, DJ, you just got a new subscriber. So Jason subscribed to me. Thanks, man.
You just got a subscriber.
And thanks so much to everybody. You guys have been so supportive. I think we're at 165 now. But everyone in the comments has just been super supportive and nice. And that's awesome. I really appreciate that. You guys have been great. It's been a lot of fun.
But once again, plug for DJ's channel. The link might still be in the description. I'm not sure. And it is called The Welder. And it's wonderful. Yes, it is still in there. Yeah, check it out. And also check out Jason's channel. He's there in the comments, so you can click on that. Video Game Secrets. You guys, they're clever and insightful. Well, I say clever. Some of them are, but they're insightful, and you'll learn a lot about stuff with video games that you probably don't know. And even if you know a lot about video games, I'm telling you, there's some stuff in there you're not going to know about. I wish we had time to play one. They're short, but we're already out of time, so we should get to some more questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been watching those too. Those are really great, Jason. Keep it up. Roger Lee.
Hey, I just got a message from my wife, and she's not going to leave me. So,
let's cheer again.
Yeah! So, let's do some more questions as quickly as we... Daniel Davis in the comments says, Cap can't rapid fire. So from now on, I'm going to go rapid fire.
That should be the name of the show, Cap Can't Rapid Fire. We'll just combine this with Cap Can't Play.
It's like I made a whole career out of crap I can't do.
I didn't hate on Indiana Jones, Adam.
I think that's because I have the crap virus.
Ah, that's what it is.
That's it. All right, what's next?
Roger Lee. Hi, Cap. I happened across a pilot review you did for The West Wing from a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Any plans to jump back into that show someday? I loved your take on those first few episodes.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, and I would like to watch more of that show. In fact, it's funny you say that, because I did go back and watch a couple more episodes after that, and I just haven't gotten around to finishing it. But at some point, it's on my list. You guys might have, some of you guys have seen this. So I put up a post on YouTube and Facebook the other day asking for ideas for recent shows that you guys think I really need to check out. And again, I'm not doing spoiler cast right now, but I'm going to try to binge a few things when I have time and talk about them on this show. As maybe lead-in topics or just when they come up again. So I'm going to try to culture myself with some more recent stuff that you guys recommend. I've already got, I think, 40 or 50 suggestions. I mean, that's not all going to happen this year, obviously. TV takes a while. But he mentioned West Wing in that, obviously not as a new show, but he was like, yeah, you were talking about that. Could you watch some more of that? I would like to. So, yes, hopefully at some point. But right now, I am working my way through Walking Dead, and I just finished the end of Season 7, and I think the most devastating moment of television I've ever sat through is that cliffhanger, and see that very famous, of course, which I didn't know about, but I know about it now, cliffhanger at the end of 6, when Negan is introduced. I've never seen anything like that, and it affected me almost physically. I'll say that it was a trip, man, not in a fun way, but I am glad that I experienced it, and I just blew through 7, just at night, exercising and stuff. It was the only thing I was watching. I couldn't help it. I just couldn't stop looking at it, and some really fascinating character work and stuff in that season. A lot of people say with Walking Dead, I'll say this real quick, that that show falls off at some place. And everybody I've talked to says that it's a different place, where it's like the show suddenly gets boring, it's not worth watching, I don't know why they're still making it. It's like a different place for every person. And I have discovered, at least for myself, that is because, and there's still 3 seasons I've not seen yet, or 2 that have been made and 1 that's coming out now. Is that how math works? Yeah. 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, 3 and then the 4th, and then the last one, 11. Anyway, but I have discovered, at least for myself, that that's because that show has, like, peaks and valleys. It's not that it loses its steam and it never gets it back again. It's like, I don't think it's one of those shows, at least so far from what I've seen, that loses itself and just shouldn't be on anymore, and it's just there because it was popular one time and kept a certain amount of viewership. I heard that happened with Supernatural. It's happened with lots of shows. It happened with Dexter. I don't think Walking Dead is like that. I think there's certain arcs they nail and certain arcs that they falter on a little bit. The Governor stuff bored me to tears. The Terminus stuff was too intense for me without enough to latch onto. And the Negan stuff is in a lot of ways more intense than that, but I feel like it earns it, and I'm captivated. So once that turns around and we get to the like gated community place that they've been in for the last couple seasons that I've been watching, then it gets great again. So I mean, I have peaks and valleys with that show. Ebb and flows. Anyway.
Speaking of...
Yes, Daniel Davis, I'm rambling. I had intended on talking about this because I've been watching that show and I just want to check in somewhere. And it was the worst segue imaginable, but I wanted to talk about it, so I did. So, yeah, you know.
Now rapid fire starts. But man, speaking of television shows, boy, did you get a response to that last post you just did about recommending TV shows.
Oh, thanks a lot, everybody.
Plus responses on that. That was great.
And
I second Queen's Gambit.
Part of the reason I did that, and I didn't even know about that show. But part of the reason I did that was because there were a lot of things that I knew that I needed to look at that I had planned on doing at some point that I've just forgotten about. So it just refreshed my memory on a lot of stuff. So I want to thank everybody who responded to that. James says, "What about Star Trek?" I really do need to do that. We'll see if there's super chat. I'll end with it if there's no super chat, but I do have to talk about Star Trek.
All right, James Egan, another one that you're not going to be able to do rapid fire on. $7.99. Thoughts on Loki?
Oh, thoughts on Loki. Maybe we should put a pin in that and try to talk about it a little bit more next time. No, I've talked a little bit about the first few episodes, and I just finally finished it. I don't have a ton to say right now. I don't think, especially because we've been going for a couple hours already, but just to say that I enjoyed it more than a lot of people that I'm talking to about it. It's so in my wheelhouse, man. Like the Douglas Adams-ness of that, the quirky science fiction, the random stuff, like Loki is an alligator, like I loved all of that. Or an alligator that is Loki. The British humor is a thing that I didn't think we'd ever see in a Marvel thing. I think it's really creative, and there's a lot of clever stuff about it. Like a lot of people, I have huge reservations about the kind of near romance, or more than near romance, that we get to with Loki and himself as a woman. And I've talked before about how weirdly incestuous that idea is in other things, and we're doing that here, and I won't get into that whole thing again, but yeah, I feel funky about that too. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending of that show. I'm okay with the cliffhanger of it. We knew it was getting a second season. The way it's setting up stuff for more MCU, I think, is good. When I talked to Austin about this, he said that he was taken out with the big 40-minute speech with the bad guy at the end because it just seems like it's a big advertisement for MCU stuff moving forward. I agree with that. I think that could have been cut way down, a quarter of the length that it was. It was ridiculous how much of that episode was taken up with that, and I don't think it warranted that. I think that actor was great. For people that haven't watched that yet, I don't want to spoil what I'm talking about, but you guys that have seen it all know what I'm talking about. And I will spoil this. Hopefully this is not too big of a thing to spoil, but I don't know how else to make this point without talking about it. Loki in that show, stop listening for 3 minutes if you don't want anything about that ending spoiled. I don't know how huge this is. Loki does not ultimately have the big long con that you might have thought that he had, and I just don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I'm buying how kind of altruistic he's getting by the end of that, because I was enjoying the ambiguity of whether Loki was a product of his nature and could never change his nature or not, and that's kind of answered by the end, and I don't know that I like that. I kind of wanted that to remain ambiguous, especially getting into a second season of that show, but I might feel differently on a second watch. This is all first impressions. Overall, I really enjoyed that, though, and I wish the movies were allowed to go as comic book as that did, because that was very much my kind of thing, and I'm shocked that I had as much fun with it as I did, because I didn't really care about that character getting a TV show, and it was more for me than I ever thought it could have been. And I don't know, it might be my favorite MCU Marvel thing so far, and I didn't think that I would be saying that, but you know, it's probably that and then WandaVision.
You mean TV-wise? You just said MCU Marvel thing, which is a big
Disney
statement.
Disney Plus Marvel thing is what I meant to say. I'm talking
it's like,
fast.
wow, you like Loki a lot. That's really cool.
It is not my favorite MCU Marvel thing.
All right, well, rapid fire starts now. 5590 ERS.
Sure.
Favorite character from the Suicide Squad. You can literally do this rapid fire.
Say it again.
Favorite character from the Suicide Squad.
And I only saw that movie once. Boy, I almost want to watch it again before I say that. I mean, of course, Polka Dot Man's fun. I know a lot of people would probably say that.
Everybody in the Discord's favorite character is King Shark. They just keep posting GIFs over and over and over.
Yeah, and like, he was fun, and I get why he's become so meme-baity, but I think that's, I don't mean to be a prude. I think that's turned me off to that whole thing a little bit, just the way people have grabbed onto that so much. And I think part of that's just because I already thought King Shark was hilarious in other stuff, and it's like people are just now finally getting to the table with King Shark. I'm like, I've experienced like 4 or 5 completely different versions of that character now. It's like, I already liked King Shark. I don't know. He was fun in that. But, yeah, I don't know. I can tell you who it's not. I mean, it's not Harley Quinn. It's not what's his face that was the leader in the first movie. It's I mean, I love her though. That cop.
What did you just say about me?
Tight. Oh, I don't like her anymore. I don't know if that was her voice.
Yeah, she talks like a man in disguise.
I think you're gonna say she talks like somebody. I think you're gonna say she talks like somebody whose lips are perpetually pressed together.
She talks like John Travolta in
Who's it going?
Like John Travolta in that Hairspray movie from 2008, which is creepy. TH1.
Yeah.
So did you pick?
Not really. Somebody said Ratcatcher 2. I was surprised by how compelling her story seemed to be. It might be her. I don't know. Like, I liked that cast collectively. But I'm having a really hard time not saying Starro. Having a really hard time not just saying Starro. Anyway.
Let's do it. Don't make it hard. It's all right. TH1.
Rick Flag does have for people that haven't seen it, has a wonderful, wonderful scene. But, yeah, I don't know. I loved everybody collectively, but I don't know that I have a favorite. Anyway.
All right. His favorite character is everyone but Harley Quinn. There you go. TH1. I'm heading to bed. Good show tonight. New job early. Oh, well, good luck at work.
Good luck on your new job, Tom. See you later, man.
Thanks for hanging with us, man. Nicholas Robinson. Will Clea be in Doctor Strange 2? Watch The Expanse.
I need to watch The Expanse. That's on that list, and that might be the next or the second next thing that I do after watching Walking Dead. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, I would be somewhat surprised. I almost said shocked again. I would be almost surprised if Clea was not in that next Doctor Strange movie, because I was surprised they didn't use her in the first one. So yeah, I kind of hope so. I kind of hope they cast her.
Carl Maxey, good to see you guys. I've never been a fan of What If comics because they're too depressing and uninteresting. I love DC Elseworld comics better.
Well, I think a lot of Elseworlds are also depressing, but that's one of the things that I enjoy about it, and especially that I enjoyed when I was a kid. There was a real novelty to that, right? Because most comics, even in the 90s, even during that, really kind of edgy period where you had a lot of anti-heroes and stuff, your superheroes still always tended to save the day at the end. And there was often a message, and, there's some sappiness to be had. A lot of stuff was still aimed, primarily at kids, of course. And I'm not saying that you can't tell really, really positive, wholesome stories for adults too, but that's a lot of why we're still doing that, hopeful things. But there was a novelty when I was a kid to a story that ends with the hero, making it out alive and saving everything, to just horrific things happening to them, or they're dying or something. When you're a little kid, that's like a big deal. You never thought you'd see that, and so I don't know. That was always really fun for me. I didn't want them all to be like that, and they're not all like that. But that's why I was starting to get kind of irked by the TV show, because it just seemed like everything was working out at the end too often. And then when they finally have one where it's tragic, it has to go completely the other direction, where like the whole universe is destroyed. Like, okay, but at least we did one that way finally. Yeah, but anyway, I digress. Some of them are uninteresting. I always skip the ones that were based on things that I just never read.
Mr. Roboto, $2. No Way Home, Return of the Welder? Yes, maybe? Well, according to my contract, I cannot comment on that, Mr. Roboto, but we will see.
But the answer is no. So moving
on. Then another one from Mr. Roboto, $2. Gator Loki versus the Joker. Does Joker lose a hand?
That is so random. I would think Gator Loki versus most anybody, they're probably losing a hand. The Joker would lose a hand, but it would turn out that it wasn't his real hand, and he would do that joke he does in '89 where he'd say, "Lend you a hand."
Ah, yes.
You just set me right up for it. You set me right up for that.
Josh Calisano, do you think it's possible the MCU multiverse stuff could be providing an in-continuity reason for having standalone, out-of-continuity Marvel movies? I would love that.
I hope so. And I've had that thought, too. I hope so. I wouldn't mind what-if movies, to be perfectly honest with you, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see ultimately how popular this whole thing has been, because I have been hearing some people talk about it, certainly. It doesn't seem like even a lot of general audiences who aren't big comic book people wrote it off just because it's animation. It does seem like people are watching it, and I know a lot of people are very mixed on it, so, but I don't know. I hope they do more of them, and I hope that they're better than they have been, most of them.
Mr. Roboto, can Peter say Uncle Ben as he eats Uncle Ben rice? Sure.
Well, sure. He can say Uncle Ben when he's eating anything. I don't know why he would. He's like,
it would
he's
be
eating a taco.
because...
Uncle Ben. I don't know why you'd say that. I don't really understand that question.
Don't talk while your mouth's full, Peter. That's just rude.
Can we get more questions like that? That's very easy to do rapid fire.
Another one from...
Sure. Moving on.
Here we go. Maniac Madness 11. How do you think the MCU will handle Magneto's origin, since by the time he is introduced, he'll be too old to have been a Holocaust survivor?
Yeah, so that's a classic Captain Logan Show question. I want to say we've addressed
this. A classic Geekvolution question. Yeah, I feel like we talked
4 or
about
5 times. That is second in how often that comes up. It's second only to will the also an X-Men thing. Will the X-Men be in another universe, or will they be mutants? And then third is how will they handle Fantastic Four? It's all about what are these characters that have not been in the MCU for 12 years? How are we finally going to land them in it? Yeah, as I've always said, I think he's either going to not be a Holocaust survivor and they'll try to update that in some way, or it'll be a frozen in time thing somehow.
Or they could just get zapped into the future, like the Spider-Man 90s show, where Captain America and Red Skull just like are in the middle of a fight, and then some machine zaps them away until the 90s.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, and then,
he could be from. If they cop out and make everything multiversal, it could just be a universe that is behind the times, and the 1940s are happening right now. Or not the 1940s are happening now, but I guess like the 1980s to the 1990s. Like basically he just steps out of the Fox X-Men show. It could be like that.
Austin's comment was hilarious. He said, "Where does Can You Guys Swim on Camera rank?"
That is 4th or 5th, most assuredly.
I mean, it's just one guy bringing it back.
It would be higher if you don't count the fact that that's just one guy in a bunch of episodes. Sure.
You really. I mean, hey. You got a dream, you got to go for it.
That's been going on for a good year and a half, and I mean, maybe when we finally get together again, we should swim on camera.
We'll swim. I have a pool now, so we could totally make it happen.
I'm a lot more in shape now. I'd feel better about doing it.
Here you go.
It's a little heftier back then, but I think I don't know. I don't think I would be as self-conscious at this point doing that. I think I'd feel better about it.
Well, that's great. Mr. Roboto, Gotham versus Krypton, which hold better as time goes?
Well, neither of those is going to age well. Krypton has the advantage of being shorter, so you're not going to be as nauseated for as long. And it's convoluted in a very different way. Weirdly, I think ultimately Krypton is probably the show that holds up better. It's probably, I don't know, it's hard to say that. They're both bizarre and awful and the most counterintuitive things I've ever seen.
Exactly. Dago says, I love how 90s Spider-Man had Cap and Red Skull just awkwardly grabbing at each other in a yellow void for all eternity. Yes, that's what I was talking about. It's so good.
Austin's weird because he's a huge fan of if I'm remembering this right, I think Austin told me that he's a huge fan of the 90s Spider-Man show, but he's not seen X-Men at all. Is that right? Am I remembering that right, Austin?
That's 100% true of me.
Oh, is it really?
Also, I love
Maybe
that
I was
show,
thinking of you, but I thought he told me that.
I've never seen X-Men. He's probably the same boat.
Austin, I'm just saying things about you. I'm probably completely wrong.
Let's do a series where we watch X-Men for the first time, Dagos. Lewis Cox.
I'm all over that, dude. That sounds awesome. Sure.
Smallville year, then Cap. Okay, this must have been in response to what we were just saying a while ago.
By just, he means half an hour ago.
So he says Smallville year, then Cap. LOL, I am joking.
See, if I had the time, that's how I would do it, though. I mean, they probably still wouldn't be scripted because I just don't think I'd have the time to do it, but I would. Because the problem with scripted Crypto Freaks, besides the fact that I was just getting copyright flagged right and left and I couldn't post those videos, was they were getting. I had too much to say in the later episodes I was doing, and so they would end up becoming almost the length of the episode. So I was like, I might as well just make them commentaries. So I would probably just do them as daily commentaries if I had the time to do that. I wish I did. And it wouldn't take a whole year. Even if you put the comics in there, it wouldn't take a whole year. So it'd be like, counting Crypto Freaks 2/3 of a year? Or like, a little more than half?
All right, let me see. What do we got? James Egan. Have you seen Long Halloween Part 2? Also, I recommend the Netflix German show, Dark.
A lot of people are recommending that. I watched the first half of the pilot, and I was too tired that night for a thing that cerebral, and I was afraid nothing was going to stick with me, so I quit watching it. I want to get back to that, and actually, people said a lot of great things about that. I'm hearing about it constantly. And I've heard it compared to Loki quite a bit because of the way that it handles quantum theory and time travel and stuff like that. So yeah, I do want to do that. What was the first part of that question? He asked if I'd seen something.
Long Halloween Part 2.
Long Halloween Part 2 I've not seen yet.
Ah, well, there you go. Rapid fire. Thomas Low 86 just gives us 3 something. I don't know. Do you know what this is? MYR?
That's new to me.
I've never seen that before. Thank you, sir, for that donation.
Thanks so much.
No question,
Appreciate
just the donation. And then Chewbacca's Lover, thoughts on Chuck Dixon's YouTube channel. It gets as many views as your channel. Worth watching.
I didn't know about that. So I have no thoughts.
I don't know who that is. And then Thomas Low 86.
I will look into it, though. Chuck that name rings a bell.
Chuck Dixon.
Is that... Why am I blanking? It's not a Batman writer, is it?
Yeah, I hope you're not asking me.
I'm sure it's. I'm sure it's not. I'm not sure. Maybe it is. Is it the Batman writer? I'm gonna check this out if that's who this is. It must be.
It's got to be someone.
Remember, I was just like, surely that's not.
Way
he just says Q&As.
Oh, sweet.
I will take a look at this. That sounds cool.
Yeah. Clark Kent says he's a Batman writer. That's awesome.
Sorry, for a second I was like, is that who I'm thinking of? That is that's cool that he's doing that. Yeah, Chuck Dixon has written way more than I think anybody realizes. It's insane. I think and I've been reading Chuck Dixon stuff lately. It's just I second guessed myself for a second. Because I was like, surely that's not who I'm thinking about. Yeah. Anyway,
you're still sharp as a tack. 5 kids, still sharp as a tack.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. He's a guy I love to talk to. And I haven't done interviews and stuff in a long time, but I'll listen to him a little bit. And like I said, I've been reading his stuff lately. I might consider seeing if I can get him to come on and do a live show, especially since he's doing YouTube stuff. That'd be a really fun guest.
He's the guy you described as responsible for your Batman.
Yes.
Chewbacca's lover.
Yes, no, I know. Like I said, I just second-guessed myself for a second. I was like, wait, am I thinking of the right person? Yeah, of course, it's Chuck Dixon.
Is that my favorite Batman writer?
I was just talking about this last show. That, like, I didn't well, that's the thing about the thing about Dixon is he just wrote a lot of stuff I didn't realize he wrote, because, you know, one time I wasn't paying as much attention to writers, and he was a workman, you know, DC writer who was constantly doing books, and he, you know, somebody just said, like, he did Batman and Nightwing for 10 years, longer than that, and he still occasionally, I don't think all that recently he's come back and done much. He did that Bane maxi series a year or two ago that I've not read yet, but I bought it all. But yes, he created Bane. He's I mean, he's definitely my Batman, absolutely. Did a lot of stuff during the, you know, Brayfogle era. Yep.
Thomas Lowe
and beyond. And he also, I think, created the Birds of Prey, or at least he wrote most of that series.
Oh. This one?
No, not that.
Thomas Lowe 86. Can we, and with 6 more of those MYR currency, which sounds really cool, can we expect Superhero Rewind in the near future? Watch the stream because he went into detail.
The answer to that is sort of.
Maybe? It depends.
The answer to that is I'm going to try to start talking about old superhero movies again in a very casual way, but I just don't have the time to write right now. I tried, man. I really tried, but at the moment it can't be done. Or it would be the absolute only thing I was doing, and you would get a video like, and some people would be like, well, then do it. Okay, but you'd get a video on the channel once a month maybe, and probably more like 6 or 7 weeks. Like there wouldn't be anything else. And I can't justify, you know, having Patreon and stuff like that if, you know, I'm not doing something. So anyway.
Thomas Ledbetter, swooping in to save the day. $2. Star Trek announcements, thoughts?
Okay.
You're welcome.
So, not even last call. Please, folks, just no more Super Chats tonight. And I should have said that earlier and I didn't even think of it. That is not me money milking. We're going to have to end pretty soon. I just wasn't even thinking about it. I should have said that. Anyway, Day Ghost, the Super Chats keep coming and they don't stop coming.
That was amazing.
Anyway, so I'll talk just real briefly about Star Trek. I'm going to have to wrap this up. I'm starting to fade a little bit. That's why momentarily I was like, who's Chuck Dixon? I know who Chuck Dixon is.
Sharp as a tack.
Shh. Okay, so yesterday we had some new Star Trek announcements and trailers and stuff. And we got the Picard Season 2 trailer, which is mortifying, an absolute train wreck. And I don't want to watch any more of that show. And I can't say that I'm not going to because it's hard to not be curious. I don't know. It's just... It's that character, or it's supposed to be that character, but it's not that character at all. And it's very difficult not to look at, even though I am positive it's going to be the worst thing ever. And I want to go into these things open-minded, of course. But it doesn't look like there's any reason to assume that they're getting away from the kind of storytelling they did last season, and the premise is awful. So first it was just, oh, we have Q and somehow the Board Queen. Okay, I mean, you know, playing the greatest hits for TNG stuff, sure. I mean, we did some of that last season. And then we found out that the whole premise is Q goes back to the 21st century. I guess we gotta save money on that show, so we're coming to present day. And Q's creating some kind of totalitarian regime to create a dystopia. And Picard has to go back in time, and also somehow the Board Queen. Okay, really? Like that's what we're doing? That's your big clever premise? All right. So in a Star Trek series where there's no contrast whatsoever between the kind of harsh reality that we live in now and what was supposed to be a at least more utopian, positive, hopeful future, you're going back in time and creating a totalitarian dictatorship. Like, they just love turning Star Trek into dark edgelord stuff for no good reason except they don't like Star Trek. They don't want to be making that. It just sucks that that's what they're doing. So that's what we have to look forward to with that. And then we got cast announcements for Strange New Worlds. And I'm angry for the opposite reason I'm mad about Picard, because this stuff sounds awesome and I can't trust it at all, and it just irks me. Because they burned me so hard on this stuff. Kurtzman doesn't know what he's doing. He clearly doesn't like Star Trek, and he doesn't like... anyway. So, what we found out about the cast sounds really cool. But I'm not going to get my hopes up again, because there's no reason to assume that it's not just going to be another convoluted train wreck. I think the pendulum is just going to swing the other way, and it's going to be just as bad as Discovery and Picard have been, but just really sappy about how positive and hopeful it's supposed to be. And those shows have already been sappy, but what they'll do is they'll give you what looks like a really dark, bleak future and story, and then they'll just have somebody monologue about hope for a while. And see, it's still Star Trek. Yeah. This looks like they're going, oh, so people don't like the, constant Section 31 and mirror universe of it all. Okay, we'll give you what we were making you think you were sort of getting with Discovery in the first place. And they're actually going to go back to episodic, and it sounds like it should be more like Star Trek, but I don't think they know how to make the show that they're saying they're making. Boy, I hope I'm wrong. Like I always say with a thing like this, my standards are so on the floor that it would not be hard to impress me. So maybe I'll get lucky and it'll sort of be watchable, but I let myself believe that Picard had a chance of being great, and it was the worst thing ever. So I can't let myself, that happen again. But if you're not into Star Trek, you're not going to know some of the things I'm about to talk about, so just bear with me for a minute. They're going back to some somewhat, I don't even want to say obscure, but just underutilized characters from TOS and making them real characters, including Dr. M'Benga, which totally blew my mind that he's going to be a major character in the show. I think that's super cool. It's a little bit weird. I mean, I don't even buy this stuff as being canonical with Star Trek, so it's whatever. But it's a little bit strange if I'm able to buy that, because you're going to make a major character out of M'Benga, who's on the Enterprise, and then when Kirk takes over, he's just going to be this background character who hardly ever says anything. That's really funny. It's also very amusing that they cast Nurse Chapel, because they've got Rebecca Romaine as number one, who's getting a name now, and they were both played by Majel Barrett. They're both played by the same actor in original series. So we're going to have two characters interacting on the ship that originally were played by the same actress. And I think that's really funny. And then there is a female character whose last name is Noonien-Sung, which is very bizarre, because I thought Noonien was Sung's middle name. So we still got to pretend like Data is the most important thing that ever happened in Star Trek, and get yet another ancestor of his creator. But whatever, we'll see if that's interesting. And then probably the most intriguing thing, again, if you know your Star Trek, is there's a character that looked Andorian at first glance, and it turns out, I think, from what little I've looked into, that it's not Andorian. I got to go back and confirm this for sure, but I read somewhere that it's actually supposed to be an Anar. And that means that they're really pulling and cribbing from a lot of different mythology, because the Anar was an offshoot species of the Andorians that we introduced in last season of Enterprise. It was really interesting, and they're these characters who live in the underground on Andor, and they are blind and have telepathic powers. And never thought I'd see them again in anything. So if that's true, that's really interesting. I love their Pike. I just haven't liked a lot of the writing he's gotten. I hope somehow it's the one that finally pulls out in his real Star Trek. I can't trust it, but the cast looks really cool. I have to say that it does. So we'll see what that show looks like when we get more footage. But and then they showed the intro to Star Trek Prodigy, and I just could not care less. So I'm not going to talk about that right now. But anyway, that's what we know. Wait, was it Sing? HB Haga says it wasn't Sung, it was Sing. Oh, I mean, that would be a whole other thing. That would make it a descendant of Khan. Okay. Yeah, I thought on the screen I saw it written out as Sung and not Sing. So that's interesting if that's true. Unless the person who wrote that just doesn't know about Sung. But anyway. Yeah. Indiana Shrekker says, I'm surprised by how much I've enjoyed Lower Decks. So I'm not arguing with you just for the sake of argument, but I just haven't even been able to deal with that show. I watched the pilot and hated it. And then I finally tried a couple weeks ago. was like, whatever. It's a thing that says Star Trek on it. I'll give it another shot. I watched 10 minutes of the next episode. I couldn't get through it. I just couldn't do it. I don't know that I will ever watch it in any more of that show. It's freaking torture for me. I couldn't do it.
Trek torture time.
It
coming in 3 weeks.
Is. Wow, it is Noonien Singh. Okay, that's interesting. I guess we'll see what they're doing with that. All right, DJ, I'm gonna have to close up shop here. So, right. How much is left?
4, and one of them's just kind of a wasted one from Day Ghost because he says, "Everybody stop sending super chats. Cap has places to pee."
Thanks for the super chat, Austin.
And then he says, if there's no super chats, then talk about Star Trek. So that's also a wasted one. Sorry I wasted all your money there, Day Ghost.
Exactly. All right, well, let's keep going. Real quick, we'll knock out those other 3, and then I'm going to bid everybody farewell.
All right. Just 2 more here. Devontae Brown, ratings-wise, season 7 and 8 of Walking Dead drops.
I have heard that. And like, 6 and 7 was some of the biggest numbers you've seen in TV in years and years, like 15 million or something, and not that many people watch one TV show anymore ever, for hardly anything. So that was crazy. But yeah, I heard it dipped. I didn't realize it was as early as 7. I thought that was until 8.
And then the last one of the evening is from Spit of SQ. Good to see you, Spit of SQ. He's been one of the ones that's been really involved over on the Welder channel, so thanks so much, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Spit of SQ, $10 or euros or whatever that is, just got here. So I'm going to ask a silly question.
Yeah.
If you were abducted by aliens, would you rather spend the rest of your lives in a well-kept zoo or as some rich alien's pet? Oh, you need to see Fantastic Planet. That's what that movie's about.
It's and I've never seen that, but I know things about it, and
it's really good.
That's what the pilot of original series does too. And in a lot of ways, that movie is like the prototype for Star Trek. So yeah, DJ, I know you're not a Star Trek guy, but like, go back and watch The Cage at some point. Like, oh, they're just doing Forbidden Planet. Okay. But anyway, that's tough. It's hard to say. I think I would rather deal with one person than a bunch of people ogling me all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it would just depend on how benevolent that person.
It depends on who the owner is, right? He could be terrible. But yeah, good question. Watch Fantastic Planet. It's on HBO Max, and it's a really good movie, and it's animated. Alex Barron agrees.
Oh, I thought we were talking about. Oh, I thought you said Forbidden Planet.
Oh, is that kind of about the same thing?
That's a different thing. Yeah. I think I've never seen it, but I thought it also had elements of that. Anyway.
Fantastic Planet is about a planet where humans are
It's just the talking
pets.
Out of the other side of my face show tonight, man. Wow. Okay, sorry.
And the aliens are much bigger than us. And one of the pets from a wealthy family learns how to read, and he escapes, and he goes in. It's kind of like Planet of the Apes, where he kind of gathers all the wild humans, and they revolt. And it's a really cool French animated 70s abstract movie. It's really cool.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Psychedelic is the word I was trying to think of.
Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We will be back again, hopefully in at least 3 weeks, and come back full-time after that with regular shows again on Thursdays, and again, possibly coming back earlier in the week for a second show if I can work it in. I'll have to talk to DJ about that once I think I'm able to do that and figure that out, but I can't promise that yet, but definitely weekly when we get back regularly, and then 1 or 2 videos a week. Like I said, we're going to keep doing... you guys didn't hear me say this. This was a thing I said before we had to start the show over, but I'm going to start doing requests again, and I will let you guys know on Patreon. I'll make a public announcement about it for anybody who wants to join Patreon and do this. We're going to keep it at the $15 tier, and I don't know if I can promise weekly right now. I got to figure that out, and I got to figure out exactly what kinds of things I'm taking. At the moment, the plan is... we're going to do commentaries instead of just off-the-cuff reviews, because I'm going to be doing more of those for Rewind-type stuff. And, but I'll probably take them some eventually for Rewind stuff, too. I just don't know yet, so that's a thing I got to figure out. But also comic reviews. So comic reviews and commentaries, but only if we can on genre stuff right now. So comics I'll do pretty much anything because it's just comics. It doesn't have to be superhero. With the movie commentaries, I'd like to keep it doesn't have to be comic and superhero related, but I'd like to keep it in that vein, so keep it genre, so like sci-fi, fantasy, that kind of stuff. And if you're not sure what I'm willing to do, you can send me a message about it first, and we'll hash it out. I've still got quite a backlog, and I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to handle that backlog yet. Those might still be the off-the-cuff reviews as they were, or I might take it on a case-by-case basis, or I might ask folks if they want to change some of them. I don't know yet, so I got to figure all that out and make an announcement about it before we come back. But I will still be keeping the request here. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here. Hope you had a good time. It's just madness with the hands. Anyway, you guys are wonderful. Thanks so much for sticking around. Thanks for your patience, and thanks for making it viable and fun to continue the madness here on Geekvolution. I was Captain Logan, and this was DJ Martinez. We'll see you again real soon, folks. Bye, everybody.
Nice.